Previously on episode 1. Winnie, can you turn off the sun? Mary turned over in bed, then her eyes snapped open. The sun? There is no sun down here. She sat up and realized she was in a strange bedroom. This wasn't her room in the Sanderson area of Purgatory. Mary jumped up out of bed and sniffed around for her sisters, but they were nowhere to be found. There was a set of stairs in the corner of the room and a very, very faint scent of Sarah, but it was months old. Mary descended the stairs and saw a woman in the kitchen area. She looked a lot like someone from her memories. Could it be? Mary, you're finally awake, her mother said. She ran up and hugged her. These arms were so familiar. Was it really the shape-shifting witch who birthed her? Mary hugged back. You have a big day ahead of you. Professor Oak wants you at his lab as soon as possible. What are you talking about? Mary asked. Her mom got serious. You'll find out more when you're there, but I'm here to give you a little encouragement. Your little sister just faced this trial and won. I have every ounce of faith that you can do it too. Sarah was here? She'd been here for 4 months, and though she didn't recognize her, her mother sent her out on her journey too. Mary, you are going to be here for a long time on your own, but you'll have companions to help you. You'll have decisions to make, but of your sisters, you are the one with the most rational mind. I didn't get to be with you long, but I know my daughter is going to come out victorious on the other side of this trial. Promise me you will work hard and face every fight head on. I promise, Mary said, realizing this really was her mother's spirit. I have so many questions for you. Why am I here? I know, dear, you have questions, but our time's running out. If you end up back here, we'll talk again. Now get going to the lab and you'll find out why you've been brought here as Sarah was. Mary reluctantly set a foot outside the house door and found herself in a bright, grassy, small town with a blue sky. Her mother said she had to go to a lab, but there wasn't a Labrador retriever around anywhere. Mary started walking to see if she could find it and came to a patch of tall grass. Before she could set her foot out there, "Wait!" an old man shouted as he ran up next to her. He pulled her back and Mary stumbled. You can't go into the tall grass on your own. Those wild Pokemon would tear you to shreds. What? What is a Pokemon? Mary was confused but terrified at the same time. Come with me and we'll get you a partner to go with you. The old man led her to a large building and she walked inside behind him apprehensively. So this was what a lab was. She sniffed around, again getting that very faint smell of Sarah. She walked up next to a young man who bore a striking resemblance to someone she hated. Reverend Trask. He could have been a much younger brother or even a son. He looked her up and down and huffed. Come on, Gramps, I'm tired of waiting. When am I getting my Pokemon? He grumbled. Patience, Jeffrey, you'll get one soon enough, the old man said, and it's Professor Oak when we're in the lab. Sorry, Jeffrey shrugged. So he was a petulant teenager. How perfect would it be to roast this Jeffrey to get back at Reverend Trask? Mary, Jeffrey, you're here to start out on your Pokemon journeys. I'm going to give each of you a Pokemon, but you'll get to choose the ones you take with you, Professor Oak explained. We'll have to go outside for you to see them, as they are rather large. Professor Oak took them to the backyard where 3 Pokemon were living. In the pond was a ray-like Pokemon called Mantine, a water and flying type. Training with a large bone was a bipedal Pokemon wearing a skull on its head, Marowak, a ground type. And off in a large corner of the yard was coiled a huge serpent sleeping in the sunlight, Rayquaza, a dragon and flying type. Mary, you can choose first, Professor Oak said, then sighed. Although I would advise either Marowak or Mantine. That Rayquaza is a legendary Pokemon who was brought to me with severe injuries. It's grown quite lazy and defiant since being here for healing. I've tried to encourage it, but it's fallen on deaf ears, and I'm afraid he'll need to be retrained from the very beginning. Mary examined the 2 Pokemon that the professor advised, but neither really took to her. They could sense her darkness and turned away. However, her mind lay on the Rayquaza sleeping a ways off. She could smell that it was still afraid of the professor and walked over to it. She cleared her throat and Rayquaza opened one eye. She gave it a smile and it blinked, taking in her appearance. It lifted its head and lowered it down to her. She held up a hand and he sniffed it, then exhaled with a head shake. She had some canine in her. I know how you feel. Being looked at as lazy when you work very hard. I think we could make a great team. I'll be happy to put in the work to make thee strong again. What do you say? Mary asked him quietly. Rayquaza stared at her for a long moment. This weird-looking lady was asking him his thoughts. She seemed like a hard worker and sincere, but he could sense a savage side to her. To be fair, it had lessened recently, but it was there, kind of like him. Rayquaza bent his head down and touched his nose to her palm. Mary looked over at the bewildered Professor Oak and the annoyed Geoffrey standing with his Marowak. "I choose Rayquaza," Mary said. "Well, I'll be." Professor Oak smiled. She tamed that beast so quickly. "You think because you have a legendary Pokemon you're something special?" Geoffrey asked her in annoyance. "Marowak, show 'em why we're better." "What art thou doing?" Mary gasped as Marowak started to charge them. "Geoffrey, she wasn't ready to start a Pokemon battle," Professor Oak scolded him. "Mary, send out Rayquaza got up, hovering just a couple of feet off the ground, and moved in front of Mary protectively. He roared, then looked back at Mary. She didn't even know how to begin! "Rayquaza knows how to use Twister and Scary Face. Ask it to use one of those moves," Professor Oak coached. Twister?" Mary said uncertainly. Rayquaza unleashed a twister of energy, and it smacked Marowak. "Good job! You've dealt some damage," Professor Oak said. "Lower its defense with Tail Whip," Geoffrey ordered, and Marowak did as he was told, but Rayquaza only scoffed. "Twister again!" Mary told him a little more confidently this time. Another twister of energy hit the Marowak, and this time knocked it out. "Did we win?" "You won," Professor Oak announced, and Geoffrey recalled his Pokemon with a growl. "I chose the wrong one. Too late to give it back now," he muttered, then looked at Mary angrily. "I'll defeat you next time." "Well done, buddy," Mary complimented Rayquaza, who let out a victory cry. She noticed how he hovered. "You hover just like my old Broomies did." Rayquaza's ears pricked up at the word. "What? All I said was Broomies." They pricked up again. "Broomy?" Rayquaza looked at her and smiled. "Wouldst thou like me to call you that?" He nodded and grinned. "Okay, Broomy. Good work." Professor Oak gave her Broomy's Pokeball, and the three people returned inside. He gave Geoffrey and Mary each 5 empty Pokeballs for catching new Pokemon. Then he handed them what he called a Pokedex that held information on every species of Pokemon discovered. "Now you can set out into the world of Pokemon safely. Find a path that best suits you. Good luck to both of you," Professor Oak said, and Mary left the lab with Broomy and his ball and the Pokedex in her hand. It beeped to life as soon as they were alone. "Hello, Mary Sanderson. I'll be your guide during this trial," it said. "What trial? Why am I here? And why do I have a dragon as a pet now?" Mary babbled. "Allow me to explain. Your sister Sarah went through a trial like this, but her Pokedex kept most of its secrets until she was in dire straits. I won't do that to you, as I believe the more information you have at the start will help you make better choices from the beginning. Who knows how Winifred's Pokedex will treat her when she goes through this after you." "Winnie? Sarah really was here?" Mary was shocked. "Yes, and the why is because of Winifred's sacrifice to rejoin you and Sarah in the afterlife after making the mistake of using Magicae Maxima. She showed she has the potential to change her heart. Sarah demonstrated that as well by standing up to Winifred when you three were alive on the surface. You were a little trickier, as you tend to follow Winnie's example, but there was a spark of individuality when you looked to Sarah as Winifred called you both leeches," the Pokédex went on. Mary remembered that, and it was the first time she ever questioned her loyalty. "But there is hope for you three to turn your lives around and earn another chance at life on the surface. The reason you are in this world is to test your ability to make decisions, face hardships, and see if your heart can change. You won't have your sisters to rely on this time. You'll be returned to them if you can defeat 8 gyms, beat the Elite 4 trainers in this region, and become the champion of the Pokemon League. Along the way, there will be other tests that will put your morals on the line. Are you up for the challenge?" "If it means returning to my family, I will do whatever it takes," Mary promised. 2 more things, the Pokédex said. You'll only be able to catch 1 new Pokemon per route. If you lose it, that's it. And your Pokemon are not able to be revived from fainting like others can. You'll need to form friendships with your Pokemon and do what you do best. Keep them alive just as you do for your sisters. If they are knocked out, they die. "I won't let that happen." Mary felt a knot tie in her stomach. "All right, let's go get a map from your neighbor and make our way to Pewter City, where the first gym is," the Pokédex said cheerfully. After getting her map, Mary walked into Route 1 and ran into a Pokemon. It was a pink sheep. Sparks flicked on its tail, and Mary knew this was her only chance to catch a Pokemon here. Broomy helped her capture it by weakening it with Twister. Mary didn't know what to do, but the Pokedex told her to throw one of the empty balls at it. She did just that, and click! Flaffy has been registered to your Pokedex, beeped her pocket guide. Thou art just adorable. I think I'll call thee Lambchop, Mary said, and Lambchop joined her team. Upon arriving in Viridian City, Mary's Pokedex guided her to a place called the Pokemon Center. Here she was able to heal up her 2 Pokemon. The Pokedex then showed her the market where Mary bought some potions and more Pokeballs. There was a Route 22 off to the left, so Mary went down that path and ran into a huge statue of ice. It made some terrifying noises, and this was her encounter. But Broomy burst out of his ball, wrapped Mary up in his coil, ducked his head, and kaboom! The Pokemon exploded and knocked itself out. Mary and Broomy slowly peeked up at where the Pokemon once stood. Holy magical potions! What was that? Mary exclaimed, looking at the scorched earth. Regice, a legendary ice-type Pokemon. 1 of 3. It has a habit of exploding to get out of stressful situations, beeped the Pokedex. Shall we move along? I think that is best, Mary said, and Broomy nodded. They made their way back to the Pokemon Center, healed, then walked up to Route 2. Here she ran into a mongoose-like Pokemon with sharp nails that looked a lot like Winifred's. With Lambchop's help, Mary caught Zangoose, whose name became Winifred. Now, Mary and her Pokemon walked into Viridian Forest and ran into a pink Pokemon with a very long tongue. It was a touch unsettling to Mary, but she needed more friends if she had a chance of defeating this trial. After using almost all of her Pokeballs, click! Licky Tongue has been registered to your Pokedex. Okay, Taste Bud, you need to learn to be less stubborn, Mary exhaled. Now, Mary started running into other Pokemon trainers who wanted to battle, and they had all sorts of Pokemon. The Pokedex mentioned that all of this was very irregular, but it seemed the higher-ups wanted to challenge Mary in a different way than they did Sarah. They met a new trainer, and Mary got a deep sense of dread in her stomach. He sent out another living statue hewn from rock. Uh-oh, she gulped, then held up her Pokedex. Help! Regirock, a legendary rock-type Pokemon, a brother to Regice. Be careful, it has something to defeat your whole team, it warned her. This is not going to be easy, Mary sent in Taste Bud. Regirock used Rock Throw, which hit pretty hard, but the second time around missed. Mary sent in Broomy, but Rock Throw hit really hard and he had to be brought back in. Switching Pokemon took up turns, and Mary knew she had to figure out a way to hurt it as Taste Bud came back in. Taste Bud used Lick, but it didn't do much of anything, and Regirock killed him on the next move. Mary witnessed Taste Bud tumble to the ground, motionless, and swallowed hard as she withdrew his body. She had to try something, so she sent in Lambchop. This proved to be a great strategy with Thundershock until Regirock pulled off a critical hit, leaving Mary's Flaffy with only 2 health points. She withdrew Lambchop and sent in Winifred, who was unfortunately still under sleep status from a previous battle. Mary tried hard to wake her up, but it was too late, and Winifred fell. Mary's only hope laid on Broomy, and he came in angry at the death of his teammates. But he wasn't mad at Mary, he was mad at the Regirock. Trainer and Pokemon locked their eyes. Broomy, use Twister! Mary commanded. Broomy unleashed a powerful Twister that took down the Regirock. Disheartened, Mary made it out of the forest and into Pewter City. Once they were in the Pokemon Center, the Pokedex explained how to use the PC to store Pokemon and bury others. Sadly, Mary placed Taste Bud and Winifred in the graves. With only Lambchop and Broomy left, Mary went into the grass just outside of the city to train her Pokemon. Once they were ready, they walked around Pewter City looking for the gym. When they found it, Mary read the sign. Pewter City Gym. Leader Brock. User of the... The type was scratched out. I suppose this is one of those irregularities the Pokedex was talking about. Well, here we go. Mary walked into the gym, and the attendant explained how the process worked. There was a trainer to defeat before battling Brock. Lambchop took the trainer down, and then Mary approached the young man named Brock. All right, a new challenger. My name is Brock, and usually I'm a rock trainer. But I have other Pokemon who want a chance at battling. Ready to take on my team? He asked her. Are you ready for mine? She returned the question, and Brock smiled. I like your determination, Brock said and sent out his first Pokemon. Volbeat! Broomy, take flight! Mary threw her dragon in. Volbeat was a bug type, and Broomy tore into it with Twister. Volbeat tried to throw him off by using Double Team, but Broomy used Twister again and defeated it. Brock sent in a Zubat next, and Mary stayed in with Broomy, who was looking fired up. Zubat was hit with Twister, and then it used Astonish, which did next to nothing. Broomy finished it with Twister, and the battle was over. Brock walked up to her with a nervous smile. If I'd known you had a Rayquaza, I would have grabbed my Onix. He's still pretty young, but you're treating it really well. I can tell he really likes you. Thank you. Mary felt the compliment sink in, as these came to her very rarely. She looked at Broomy, who smiled. So this belongs to you. Brock presented her with the Boulder Badge. Badge 1 was pinned to her cloak. Upon leaving, Mary bought some more supplies and healed up her friends at the center. Together, they took on trainer after trainer on Route 3, defeating every one of them. Sarah's scent was still palpable, but very distant. Knowing she had succeeded in beating this trial gave Mary something she didn't normally have. Hope. She found a patch of grass and walked into it, ready for a new Pokemon to appear, and appear it did. The tree she had leaned against moved, and she almost fell over. It was a Pokemon with 3 coconut heads. Lambchop jumped into battle against the living tree and weakened it. Mary threw a few Pokeballs, and finally, click! Exeggutor has been registered to your Pokedex, beeped her guide. Thy name will be Nutcase. Mary chuckled, as it had given her quite a start. She approached the entrance of a huge mountain, but went to the Pokemon Center nearby first to heal. While resting, she was approached by a man. He had a frightened Pokemon on a leash that looked like a cicada. Hey lady, you in the market for a good Pokemon? This Nincada for 500, he said, and the Pokemon looked at her for help. Mary saw its desperation and paid the man. You would do well to stop scaring thy Pokemon, Mary warned him as she picked up the Nincada. I'll be checking back in later. The look in her eyes scared the guy off immediately. Nincada looked at her gratefully, but the fear in its eyes reminded her of the boy she once had in a cage. I see. I'll take good care of you. After resupplying, they entered what was known as Mount Moon. Mary took a few strides in when she heard a low growling. She returned the growl as a warning and barked into the shadows. A black and gray wolf stalked out of hiding and sized her up. Her Pokedex beeped. Specially selected for Mary Sanderson. May be caught and used legally. 2 encounters now available in Mount Moon, it said, and Mary looked at it. For me? She asked it. Fitting for your personality. Good luck catching it. In its teeth, the wolf held a stick with meat on it. Had this thing been eating a kebab? How in the world was that possible? Mary sent in Lambchop, and the opponent spit out the stick. Lambchop used Tackle a few times to weaken the Pokemon, but Mary only had 3 Pokeballs and it broke out of the first one. She called in Nutcase and had him use Hypnosis to put the Pokemon to sleep. This time, the Pokeball caught. Mightyena has been registered to your Pokedex, said her pocket encyclopedia. As it snoozed, Mary looked at the stick it had been chewing on and named it Shishka Baby, but decided to call her Cabby for short. On their way out to heal, they ran into a Croconaw that, unfortunately, Cabby knocked out. Mary gave her a light scolding, but told her she did a good job fighting. Knowing there were trainers in the mountain, Mary decided it was time to train her Pokemon again. And now, previously on episode 2, Mary and her Pokemon entered the cavernous Mount Moon and began to navigate their way through the mountain. Mary was great at hiking through the area as she was able to sniff for the outside air at the end of the cave. They fought any trainers who challenged them to a battle, and they were holding their own really well. Mary was starting to really grow closer to her pets, especially Broomy and Cabby. As they traversed the caverns, Mary wandered into a pretty empty area, except for one man in a black uniform. When he heard her walking by, he turned and ran up to her. Well, hello, Mary said. Hey, lady, this is a restricted area. You're interfering with Team Rocket's mining operation, he barked. Oh, I apologize for my mistake. I'll be on my way now, Mary said, and started off in the other direction, but he pulled a Pokeball from his belt. Uh-oh. You want to battle, don't you? You've seen too much, he said. Go, Wurmple! He sent out a very small caterpillar, and Mary raised an eyebrow and snorted. Go, Nutcase, and use confusion! She sent out her Exeggutor. Nutcase knocked it out without batting an eye. Next, the Team Rocket Grunt sent in a Pokemon called Seadra. Mary had Nutcase use Bullet Seed, as her Pokedex told her Seadra was weak to Grass-type moves. 2 hits from Bullet Seed took down their foe. The Rocket Grunt groaned, and Mary was free to go on her way. She thought the man was really strange, but her surprise doubled down when she ended up fighting her way through a whole group of them. They kept saying she was interfering with their plans, but she had no idea what they were talking about. Once she made it through the horde, she pulled out her Pokedex. "What were they talking about?" she asked. Team Rocket is a group of ruffians who sell Pokemon for profit, often capturing them against their will. "No other information is in my databanks, so I am as lost as you are," it responded. "Well, they seem unpleasant. I certainly hope I don't run into them again." She exhaled, then sniffed the air. "Oh! We're getting very close to the exit." No sooner had she said that did she run into a nerdy-looking guy guarding a pair of rocks. "Pardon me, sir, might I pass?" "Stay away from my fossils, lady," he snapped. "You can't have them. They're mine." "I simply want to pass." Mary had no choice but to battle as the man sent out a spoink in the blink of an eye. "Your time to shine, Icy!" Mary sent out her bug type. "Excellent matchup, Mary. Your Nincada is strong against psychic types like spoink," her Pokedex beeped. "All right, so Icy, use Leech Life," she commanded. Icy bit down on the spoink and drained some of its health. Spoink didn't stand a chance against the second Leech Life, and Icy stood victorious. Next, the trainer sent in a rock and ground type called Pupitar. Mary withdrew Icy and sent in Nutcase. Pupitar set up a sandstorm to cause continual damage, but Bullet Seed took out the foe. Coming in next was a Pokemon called Wobbuffet. Mary's Pokedex went off like a siren when it came in, scaring the daylights out of her. "Be very careful, Mary. Wobbuffet is a Psychic-type Pokemon with an ability called Shadow Tag. You can't switch out your Pokemon unless it's killed. To make matters worse, this Pokemon knows 3 very dangerous moves: Mirror Coat, Counter, and Destiny Bond. Mirror Coat absorbs the energy from special attacks like Confusion and blasts it back at double the power. Counter does the same with physical attacks like Stomp. And Destiny Bond is the most dangerous. It links the target to the attacker, and if the attacker knocks it out, it instantly kills them. You have to approach this carefully," it coached. "Oh, okay, I must think. How can Nutcase kill it without it killing him?" she pondered, then snapped her fingers. "If it is asleep, it can't do anything to him. Nutcase, hypnosis!" Her executor pulled off a hypnosis attack and put the Wobbuffet into a deep sleep. Mary cheered, then called for him to use Bullet Seed, which hit 4 times in a row. The Wobbuffet did not wake up on the next turn, or the one after that, so Nutcase was able to knock it out without trouble. Mary gave him a pat on the back, and all 3 heads smiled at her. The nerdy fellow withdrew his Pokemon and gulped nervously. Hey, there's no reason we can't share these fossils. You take one and I'll take one," he said worriedly. "For all the trouble thou hast caused me, I should take both, but I'm not unreasonable." Mary glared at him, then picked up one fossil. She exited the cave a few feet later. As she entered Route 4, she found a patch of grass to rest in. As she was doing so, she heard the distinct sound of heavy footsteps getting closer. Mary took a few sniffs of the air again, and this time smelled something familiar. Sarah's scent! It was far stronger now. Mary got up and started sniffing around. The smell was definitely in the area, so maybe Sarah was too. That's when she felt hot breath on the back of her neck. Slowly, Mary turned around and came nose to snout with a huge orange dragon. She gulped and backed away slowly as it growled at her. This was the thing that smelled like Sarah. She realized this was also her encounter for Route 4. She sent out Lambchop to fight it, and the dragon scratched her. However, Lambchop's ability, Static, activated and paralyzed the creature. Slowly, Mary whittled it down with Tackle. She started throwing ball after ball at the creature and got down to only 2 Pokeballs left, and on the last one, click! Charizard has been registered to your Pokedex, beeped the encyclopedia. Then it beeped again, looking at the level and stats. For Arceus' sake! This is no ordinary Charizard. This is Sarah Sanderson's Charizard, Brutus. My sister's Pokemon? Mary gasped and sent out the Charizard. It roared and growled, looking around the area. It saw Mary and growled lower. Art thou Brutus, the Charizard belonging to Sarah Sanderson? At Sarah's name, Charizard stopped growling. It sniffed the air and looked Mary up and down. The Pokedex beeped and pulled up a photo of Sarah with a Charmander. Is this your sister? it asked her. Mary looked at it and gasped. "'Tis my sister Sarah!" she exclaimed. Charizard looked over her shoulder at the photo and inhaled sharply. He moaned lovingly and his eyes turned up in a smile, a couple of tears swimming in them. "Then this, Mary, is her very first Pokemon. Brutus was killed in a battle that led to your sister being bounced back to the very beginning of her journey. Apparently, when she defeated the Pokemon League and became champion, her deceased team members were restored to life and sent back into the wild. When Sarah lost Brutus, he was only a Charmeleon. Looks like he's been working hard," the Pokedex finished. Mary looked at Brutus, who was still looking at the photo, longingly. "Brutus, huh? Well, I'm Mary Sanderson, Sarah's older sister," she introduced herself. Brutus gave her a good, long sniffing before licking her face over and over. Mary laughed as his tongue tickled, but he cozied up to her and she pet him a few times. "You tried to protect my sister, but how about you travel with me now, huh?" Brutus gave an enthusiastic roar and panted. Mary and Brutus spent a fair amount of time getting to know each other and training together. Brutus was very happy to have found someone related to his dear trainer Sarah, and he swore that this time things would be different. He didn't get his chance to protect Sarah, but he would protect Mary at all costs. Mary and her team crossed into Cerulean City and headed to the Pokemon Center for some rest and healing. Once they were re-energized, Mary decided to explore the city, and that's when she ran into Jeffrey. "Fancy meeting you here, Mary. How many Pokemon have you got?" he asked. "6," she said proudly, and he laughed. "That's all! I've caught a load of them. Of course, only the strongest are on my team. How about we battle and see how far behind you've gotten?" he jeered. "Nothing would bring me more pleasure than defeating thee again," Mary smirked. "Slacking! Show her what you're made of!" Jeffrey sent out a huge ape. "Brutus, make me proud!" Mary sent out her new friend who was roaring and ready to go. "Ember!" Brutus blew a flame at the Slacking, but it hardly did a thing. Slacking swatted back and took a decent chunk of Brutus's health. On the next turn, Slacking didn't use a move because of its ability Truant, so Brutus got in another attack for free. However, once he brought the Slacking down to lower health, it healed itself with the move Slack Off. Brutus put up a good fight, with Mary healing him a couple of times. The Slacking just kept undoing all of his damage, so Mary had to switch the tiring Brutus out for Broomy. Even Broomy had a hard time taking down the Slacking, but finally Twister took it down. In came a Quilava, and Broomy used Ancient Power to knock it out. In came a Pokemon called Vibrava, which Broomy took out with Twister, as the foe was a Dragon type. Marowak came in last, and Broomy beat it with just a few Twisters. "Whoa! Good job, Broomy! Thou hast swept the floor with Jeffrey!" Mary cheered, and cuddled her Rayquaza's head, Broomy nuzzling her lovingly. "Yeah, well, you've got a Rayquaza. I still have more Pokemon than you do. You should go check out Bill's collection of rare Pokemon. He'll flip if he sees your Rayquaza, and you might learn a thing or two. I'm out of here. There's another gym to beat in Vermilion." Jeffrey walked off in a huff. Mary healed up her team and decided to go explore the upper routes and visit the man Jeffrey told her about. Thankfully, the people in town told her how to get there. To get to the upper routes, Mary had to battle her way across Nugget Bridge, and she did so flawlessly. At the end of the bridge was a man in a black uniform with a big R on his chest. Mary gulped as he introduced himself as a member of Team Rocket. He asked if she wanted to join, and when she declined enough times, he brought out his first Pokemon, Delcatty, that lulled a couple of Marys to sleep. Cabby fought through the drowsiness and delivered the finishing blow to the Delcatty. The grunt sent in Poliwrath, and Mary countered with Lambchop. Unfortunately, Poliwrath landed a couple of blows that took Lambchop down to red health. Broomy had to come in and handle it at the end. This was now her second run-in with Team Rocket. Mary didn't like where this was going, but she had encounters to grab. On Route 24, she ran into a Regirock. Uh-oh, Mary gulped, and Broomy burst out of his ball, coiled around her, ducked his head, and kaboom! Mary and Broomy peeked up at where Regirock exploded. "Why do those creatures continue to blow themselves up?" Broomy shrugged and coughed from the soot on his face. Route 25 brought the catching of a Torkoal that Mary named Koopa. She battled her way along the route, then found a house with the name Bill on the mailbox. This must have been the place Jeffrey was talking about. Mary saw that the door was cracked open, so she stepped inside. Upon entering, she found a fluffy pink Pokemon on the floor. Well, aren't thou adorable? Mary commented. Adorable, yes. Pokemon, no, said the pink Pokemon. Mary let out a scream from surprise, and the talking Pokemon shuddered. Please, madam, I'd prefer if you didn't scream. I could use a hand if you have a minute. See, I accidentally fused myself with a Pokemon when I was testing my machine. If you don't mind to press that red button over there, I'll turn back once I'm back in the machine. Can you do that? I can try, Mary said apprehensively. The Pokemon climbed in the machine, and Mary pressed the button. Out walked a regular-looking guy from one end, and from the other came the pink Pokemon. The man thanked Mary and handed her a ticket to a party on the cruise liner SS Anne. He said she'd need to win another badge before using the ticket. With that in mind, Mary returned to Cerulean to face her next gym battle, but not before some training. As her Pokemon worked to grow stronger, she noticed Icy was having a significant amount of trouble keeping up. Mary remembered the 2 candies she'd picked up along her journey and pulled them out. She sat down with Icy, who in turn crawled into her lap. Now, I did a little asking around, and it turns out these candies will instantly increase thy power. Thou art having some trouble fighting right now, aren't thee? Icy nodded and exhaled tiredly. I thought so. Why don't you eat these and see if they help you even the playing field? Icy nodded vigorously, and Mary fed her the candies. Icy gobbled them up and grabbed an empty Pokeball to roll around on the ground. As she was playing with the ball, Mary saw Icy beginning to glow. The glow got brighter and brighter as Icy was lifted into the air. She grabbed the ball and glowed brightly until Ninjask has been registered to your Pokedex, beeped her enchanted box. What just happened? Mary asked as Icy began buzzing around. Nincada evolved into Ninjask. Her Pokedex then beeped again. Shedinja has been registered to your Pokedex. How did... I have a new Pokemon? Mary took the ball Icy was holding and opened it. A floating shell of a bug stared back at her. So I do. When Nincada evolves holding an empty Pokeball, Shedinja is born. Well, pleased to meet you both. Mary went back to the Pokemon Center and deposited Shedinja in the PC. Now it was time for the gym. She approached and looked at the sign. Once again, the gym's typing was scratched out, which meant Mary had no idea what she was walking into. Her Pokeball shivered with confidence. We can do this, she said to herself, then walked inside. The first trainer was a problem, as Brutus, Icy, and Lambchop worked together to take down a Clefable after being put to sleep many times and their moves being rendered useless. Broomy took out the trainer's Fortress, then they moved to the next trainer who was arguably much less of a challenge with her Natu. Then it was time for the leader, Misty. Normally, I have an all-out offensive with water types, but this time I think I'll use these 2 Pokemon. Are you up for it? She asked. Absolutely, Mary said confidently. Go for it, Blastoise. Misty brought out her first Pokemon. Lambchop, show it what you can do. Thundershock. Lambchop used Thundershock, while Blastoise used Water Gun. Lambchop hit it again, but Misty healed up. Lambchop was able to outspeed the foe and zap it out of commission. Charmeleon came in next, and Brutus jumped into battle against his de-evolved form. For Brutus, this meant redemption. He died in Cerulean City as a Charmeleon, but now he would defeat his weaker self and protect his new friend Mary. Scratch after scratch, Brutus chipped away at its health until it fell, and he roared victoriously. Mary cheered, and he ran over to her, wrapping her up in a big hug. Misty smiled and nodded to herself. Your Pokemon are very well trained and clearly love you. Take the Cascade badge as proof of your victory, she said, and Mary pinned her second badge to her cloak, one closer to Sarah and Winifred. After they left, they had to fight yet another Team Rocket grunt before heading down to Route 5, where Mary caught a Gorbis that she named Angie. Then on Route 6, she caught a horsey named Ariel. They arrived in the next town of Vermilion City, where Mary was gifted a fishing rod by a man fishing at the docks. Mary decided to try it out and ended up catching a Huntail named Hunter. Mary saw a huge ship bearing the name SS Anne and realized that's the boat her ticket was for. And now? Previously on episode 3. Mary and her team explored Vermilion City, then walked over to Route 11 where they ran into an Umbreon. She sent out Cabby to help her catch it, but Cabby ended up critical hitting the Umbreon and knocked it out. Mary exhaled in disappointment, but Cabby looked at her and panted as if to say, "Did I do good?" Mary patted her head, then went into Diglett's cave where she found a Roselia that she named Bros. Soon after, she boarded the SS Anne for the trainer's party Bill had given her a ticket for. While on the boat, she was challenged endlessly by every trainer on board, which allowed her team to become much stronger than before. And it was a good thing, too, because as she was heading down a hall, "Well, I'm surprised to see you here, of all people," Jeffrey chortled, walking down the hall. Mary let out a low growl in her throat. "I honestly can't believe you were invited." "I was given a ticket by that man Bill. I have just as much right to be here as anyone else," she said in annoyance. "So you took a worthy trainer's spot, then," Jeffrey remarked. "I am worthy. I have beaten every trainer on this boat without losing a single Pokemon," Mary retorted. Jeffrey plucked a Pokeball from his belt. "Then why don't you put your money where your crooked mouth is?" he smirked. "Go for it, Wobbuffet. Broomy, take flight!" Mary sent out her Rayquaza, but her Pokedex went off. "Remember what I told you about Wobbuffet, Mary. Be very careful," it warned her. "We'll knock it out before it can even hurt us," she said. For the first time in a very long time, she was not calm under pressure. She wanted to beat Jeffrey to make him realize she was strong. "Scary Face to slow it down!" This move made Wobbuffet's counterattack fail. "Now, Ancient Power!" Broomy took a chunk of its health away, and Wobbuffet's Mirror Coat failed. Mary smirked proudly. "Ancient Power again!" Broomy let loose a volley of rocks that brought Wobbuffet down to red health. And then it happened. Wobbuffet used Counter, and the force of Ancient Power throttled Broomy at double the power, and Mary watched as her great dragon, her partner, fell to the floor, dead. "No! Broomy!" she cried, running forward and cradling his head in her arms. Tears burst from her eyes as she held him close to her. "This battle isn't over yet, Mary. Send out your next Pokemon," Jeffrey laughed. Mary, heartbroken, withdrew Broomy's body into his ball. "Cabby, it's all on you!" she yelled, and threw her Mightyena into battle. Cabby growled viciously after seeing the tears on Mary's face. "Use Bite and end that beast!" Cabby's fangs tore into the Wobbuffet, knocking it out immediately. She howled with victory, then in came a powerful-looking Pokemon called Mewtwo. Her Pokedex went off again. "Mary, that is a legendary Pokemon called Mewtwo. It's a psychic type with immense power. Your sister Sarah tamed one on her adventure, but this one is different and much angrier," it cautioned her, but Mary was seeing red. "Bite again!" she ordered, and Cabby charged. "Disable it, Mewtwo!" Jeffrey commanded, and Mewtwo raised a paw to exert psychic energy. Cabby's teeth made no dent, as Bite was rendered useless for the next several turns. "Oh, tackle it!" Mary barked. It barely made a dent, and Mewtwo set up its defenses. "Fine. If it wants to raise its defense, we'll raise our attack power. Cabby, howl! Over and over until the disabling wears off!" Cabby let out a loud howl. Over and over, boosting her attack power again and again as Mewtwo continued raising its defenses with Barrier. Finally, Cabby's move was free, and she charged. Her teeth chomped down on Mewtwo twice, knocking it out. Then Jeffrey sent in Slowking, another psychic type. Mary had Cabby take it out in 2 hits with Bite. Marowak came in, and as much as Mary wanted to leave Cabby in, she withdrew her and sent in Nutcase. "Bullet Seed until it's knocked out!" Mary ordered him, and Nutcase obeyed, feeling the rage burning in his trainer. Marowak got in a few weak hits, but Nutcase blasted it with seeds until it was finally knocked out, and Jeffrey was defeated. He withdrew his Pokemon and huffed in annoyance at being defeated again. Mary heard him say something about obtaining the move Cut upstairs to access Vermilion Gym, but she pushed past him before he could finish, mocking her pain. She found a very seasick captain and helped him recover out of compassion, and he rewarded her with Cut. She left the boat and walked in silent grief to the Pokemon Center, where she prepared to bury Broomy. That's when her Pokedex beeped again. "Do you understand why this happened?" it asked her. "I do not feel like conversing," she replied. "Then I will talk, and you will listen," it said firmly. "Your greatest strength is your ability to remain calm under intense pressure, and you lost that strength in this battle. The way Jeffrey degraded you made you lose your cool, which ultimately led to reckless battling. That is why Broomy died in that battle. Why did you let him get to you? I spent much of my life being made to feel lesser because I am different. 'Tis the reason my sisters and I were exiled. And, this part pained her to admit, even Winnie has a habit of degrading me when I do something she doesn't like or when I try to step up. I remain calm because I must, and I know at the end of the day she does care about me. And that is why you are on this journey, her Pokedex said. You just took a big step in admitting that people, including Winifred, get to you. And I'll reward that step with a piece of knowledge from Sarah's journey. It pulled up a few photos of Sarah brewing a life potion, a diamond-shaped pod on the ground next to her. This item is called a revive. Normally, it heals a fainted Pokemon, but because of your restraints, it's a bit different. If you find one and break it open, you will find ingredients for a life potion inside. You may give it to a living Pokemon and take their life force to revive a dead one, but it only works 3 times. After that, the test caught on to Sarah's tricks, and the pods were empty. I found one in Mount Moon, Mary exclaimed, and searched her bag until she found it. And in your meadow is a Pokemon that is more or less already dead, it informed her, and she raised an eyebrow. Shedinja, while possessing a good ability, is an empty shell of a Pokemon with no emotion or care. Well, that's a great time hack, thank you kindly. Mary withdrew Shedinja before going off away from town to work. Her Pokedex was right. All it did was float there, expressionless, while she brewed the potion. Her 5 other Pokemon watched in awe of her skills. Brutus poked Shedinja and it didn't even move. Or blink! He slowly backed away from it apprehensively. When the potion was finished, Mary handed a small bottle to Shedinja, but its arms did not move and the potion ended up in the grass. Mary made another bottle and could not find a mouth anywhere on the Pokemon. She scratched her head, looking at Icy, who just shrugged as if to say, I might have made the thing, but I have no idea what to do with it. So, on a whim, Mary poured the potion on Shedinja, and it began glowing, still without any hint of real life inside its eyes. Mary was starting to think this might be an act of mercy as she opened Broomy's ball and his lifeless body laid in the grass. She moved his head into her lap and looked at the glowing Shedinja. Sorry, she apologized to it. Still no response. Mary inhaled, and the life force left Shedinja slowly. She lifted Broomy's head, and the life force flowed into him. With an unceremonious thunk, Shedinja's body hit the ground like the shell of a locust. It took a moment, then Broomy's ear twitched, and he coughed. His eyes opened slowly, and he looked up at Mary. She burst into happy tears and hugged him tight, Broomy giving her face a lick. Her 5 other Pokemon cheered and rushed to embrace their friend and leader. After a recovery period and Icy learning Cut, they made their way into the 3rd gym where Mary had to solve a convoluted lock puzzle. She finally approached the gym leader, a big burly man who looked ready for a fight. He sized her up and crossed his arms in disbelief. Mary felt that tug of annoyance, but she also felt Broomy's ball and took a deep, calming breath. Name's Lieutenant Surge. You know, normally I would use my electric types that saved me during the war, but I've got some other Pokemon itching to battle, so I'll use them on you instead, he smirked. Let's go, Meganium. Nutcase? Fight grass with grass! Mary sent out her Exeggutor. Nutcase opened with confusion, and Meganium used poison powder to slowly drain Nutcase's health. Nutcase continued using confusion as Meganium moved into chipping away at him with Razor Leaf. In the end, Nutcase won, and Lieutenant Surge brought in Giraffarig. Mary withdrew Nutcase and sent out Gabby, who was ready to fight. Giraffarig used Astonish, and Gabby blinked from how little it even tickled her. She retaliated with a savage bite, bringing it down to red health. Surge healed, but Gabby used Bite again and knocked it out in one hit. His last Pokemon was Kabuto, and Mary decided to let Lambchop have a go. One Thunder Shock and the battle was ended. Mary cheered, and her 3 battlers hopped and danced around with her. Surge looked her up and down again and smiled genuinely. He walked up to Mary and offered his hand to shake. You proved me wrong, young lady. As usual, looks can be deceiving. I'm proud to give you the Thunder Badge. Mary took her 3rd badge and pinned it to her cloak. She shook his hand and then left. Professor Oak's assistant told her to head to Route 2 to collect the field move Flash from another helper, so she made her way through Diglett's cave in order to do so. After coming back to Vermilion, Mary prepared to go to Route 9. She took the long hike back to Cerulean and rested for the night before setting out the next day. Upon entering the grass on Route 9, she found a Cubone that she caught and named Jasper. And now, previously on episode 4, as Mary traveled down Route 9 with her team, she battled every trainer that approached her. All the battles helped her Pokemon grow in power and bond with their trainer as well as each other. Broomy liked to carry everyone on his back when they got tired. Brutus stuck close to Mary, having really begun to love her like he'd once loved Sarah. He usually reached over and held her hand, looking bashful until she smiled at him and patted his talons. Cabby was always on Mary's right side, walking valiantly next to her. Mary had earned Cabby's respect and loyalty. She also really enjoyed the snuggles and chin rubs from her trainer. Nutcase's 3 heads were often heard humming a happy little tune as he danced along the route. Lambchop liked to ride on various team members' shoulders when her tiny feet were tired. More often than not, she was with Broomy. The two had come onto the team around the same time, so they'd become very close friends. Buggy, the zippy little ninjask, loved looking ahead and checking for danger. She was always on high alert. Mary truly loved her 6 Pokemon and loved looking after them. She'd give them baths, pick fresh berries to feed them, and often slept against Broomy, whose body and tail coiled around her and the other 5. Even though she was missing Winifred and Sarah terribly, her Pokemon made the separation a lot easier. Upon crossing into Route 10, Mary bumped into a little tiny mouse that let out a big electric shock. Mary, reminded of Winifred, put out the smolder on her clothes before Lambchop helped her catch her encounter. Pichu has been registered to your Pokedex. I shall name thee after the lightning you zapped me with. Welcome to my team, Bolt. Mary smiled at the ball. They rested for the night at the Route 10 Pokemon Center before heading into Rock Tunnel the next day. Lambchop used the move Flash and walked beside Mary through the cave. They looked pretty uneasy, Lambchop holding her hand as she sniffed around for the exit. As they walked, Mary smelled something sweet. She followed it to a small Pokemon with a bulb on its back. When it looked up at her, it growled, throwing up a cloud of purple powder. Mary picked up Lambchop without hesitation and carried her out of the way before the poison powder could hit either of them. She sent in Nutcase to help her calm the Pokemon by using hypnosis. Mary threw the ball and... click! Bulbasaur has been registered to your Pokedex. This species was previously used by your sister Sarah, although it is not the one she named Cobweb. Then I shall name thee Blue. Mary smiled. I promise I'll take care of you. Together with Lambchop at her side, Mary and her team battled more trainers together while they navigated the twisting tunnel. While exploring, a giant black dog with 2 curled horns jumped them for a battle. It growled in a way that almost made it sound like it was laughing. Mary's Pokedex went off loudly. Specially selected for Mary Sanderson. You may catch and use this Pokemon legally. Another one for me? Mary asked. At the loud beeping, the dog had yelped as if it had been struck. It was actually pretty cowardly, so Mary had Lambchop help her out. Then Broomy had to come in because Lambchop needed a break. While this Pokemon seemed cowardly, it sure was fighting with everything it had. Eventually, click! Houndoom has been registered to your Pokedex, it announced. Mary opened the ball and looked at her new Pokemon. It jumped, seeing her. Hello there. You seem very nervous, boy, but thou have nothing to fear. Your battling was amazing. Though you seem cowardly, I shall name thee Courage. Do you like that? She smiled at him, and he looked at her again, then panted and licked her face. For the time being, Courage was sent to the meadow. Finally, they got out of the cave and back into the light. Mary sniffed around and smelled more than just the outside. She could feel magic in the air. It was palpable as Mary walked into Lavender Town. There was a huge tower in the center of town, and that is where the magic was coming from. It must have been an altar. Mary rested and recharged in the Pokemon Center, feeling far more powerful than the previous few weeks. Instead of exploring this town, Mary decided to head towards Celadon City that was on her map. There was a gym there. The route to the left of the town produced an encounter with a Torchic that Mary caught and named Bulldog. She crossed into Route 7 and met a ludicolo that she caught and named Pina. Upon arriving in Celadon City, Mary went exploring and found a small schoolroom in one building. The man in charge said someone had surrendered a Pokemon a few days ago and it needed a new home. Mary said she'd happily take it, and the man opened the ball to present a Flareon. He gave her the ball and chuckled. "So, there's something you need to know about this guy. His name's Hot Tamale. He loves eating tamales, but his original trainer passed away, and he always made them for him. I've been calling him Tom for short, but if you want to change the name, it's all right." "I like it," Mary said, then pondered something. "Could you show me how to make his favorite food?" "I can't, but the son of his old trainer might. He runs the restaurant in town here. Go see him and he'll help you out." One restaurant visit and a few cooking lessons later, Mary was gifted a coin case by someone in the restaurant who admired her passion for Pokemon. Hot Tamale was put in the meadow, but not before a big meal. Mary visited the game corner that the coin case was from and ended up buying a Swampert that she named Davy Jones after the pirate legend. Mary decided to take a break and do some fishing in the local pond and ended up fishing up an encounter, a Gyarados. This behemoth of a sea serpent took some work and time, but click! Gyarados has been registered to your Pokédex. "Welcome to the team, Medusa," Mary said, then sent her ball to the meadow. Mary checked out the outskirts of the town and caught a primate named Kerchak. Mary finally found the Celadon City gym that she planned to take on the next day. After catching so many new friends, Mary checked into the Pokemon Center for some rest. And now... Previously on episode 5, Mary and her team approached the Celadon City gym where the typing had been scratched out. She didn't know what they were walking into, but she trusted her Pokemon with her life. If they won here, she would be halfway to getting back home to Sarah and Winifred. She felt Broomy's Pokeball vibrate in confidence, and she patted it gently. Together, she and her team battled their way through the gym trainers, winning each time. Their strong bond grew stronger with every battle. Finally, they walked up to the gym leader, who was asleep against a tree. "Hello?" Mary said apprehensively. She took a sniff of the air, looking for any sign of death. "Gym leader, I'm here for a battle with thee." Mary gave her a nudge with her foot, then the gym leader popped up. "Oh! Sorry, I must have dozed off," she apologized. "I'm Erica, the Celadon gym leader, and you are?" "Mary Sanderson. I would like to battle thee for a gym badge," Mary replied. "Then a battle you shall have. Normally I'd fight you with a grass-type team, but I've been raising some new Pokemon and I would love to see how they're growing. Would you indulge me?" Erica asked. "By all means," Mary replied. "Wonderful. Let's begin." Erica and Mary took their positions on the gym's battlefield. "Give it a go, Ekans!" A large purple snake burst forth from a ball. From the color of its scales, Mary determined it was a poison type. "I have the best answer for thy snake. Nutcase, give it your all!" Mary sent out her executor. Nutcase used confusion and knocked out Ekans easily. Erica sent in Shedinja next, and Mary felt a small pang of guilt for the loss of hers. However, she knew what the ability Wonder Guard could do, so she recalled Nutcase and sent out Brutus. Ember knocked it out instantly. Erica brought in a Pokemon called Relicanth that floated in the small pond in the center of the field. Mary deduced it was a water type and withdrew Brutus in favor of Nutcase returning to battle. He took a Rock Tomb, then retaliated with a critical hit Bullet Seed. Just like that, the battle was over. Erica walked up to Mary and smiled. "You are raising your Pokemon better than any breeder I have met in my span as a trainer. I'm impressed with your team, especially your executor." Erica smoothed his sleeves. "I would love to trade you for it. He would be able to teach my Pokemon a thing or two." "Sorry," Mary replied and ruffled his sleeves. "Nutcase is not available for trade. He's too precious to me." Erica smiled too. "Then allow me to present you both with the rainbow badge." Erica handed Mary her 4th badge, which was pinned to her cloak. Almost immediately upon leaving, Mary got a sniff of something in the air. It smelled foul, and she followed the smell into the game corner, where she saw a man in a familiar-looking uniform with a big R on the chest. She crept up behind him, but he whirled around and saw her. "I recognize you from Mount Moon. You stopped us from getting those fossils!" he exclaimed. "Oh, I remember thee as well. You were making so much noise the Pokemon in the mountain were angry." Mary crossed her arms. "Well, I'm a little busy guarding this entrance this poster, so get out of here or fight me." "I get the sense thou art trying to guard something more than a picture." Mary stood her ground. something she had never really done before. "Then you'll fight my Pokemon! Go, Surskit!" Mary brought in Nutcase, whose confusion took down the small bug. Next came a Clamperl, which Nutcase beat with his new move, Giga Drain. The Rocket Grunt, terrified, blew the secret by pressing the switch behind the poster and running inside an underground hideout. Mary pressed the button to keep the door open and followed after. This Team Rocket disrupted Pokemon environments, and Mary didn't like seeing those innocent creatures suffering. It's like when the villagers would taunt her sisters. No one deserved to be unhappy for the validation of others, and that included these magical creatures. She worked her way down the base, fighting Team Rocket grunts as needed. Her team also felt the animosity towards Team Rocket, as their fellow Pokemon were being used as tools by those bad guys. They found a lift, but it needed a key, which meant more battles until Mary got a Rocket Grunt to drop the key. It took some figuring out, but Mary got the lift to work and found herself at guarded doors. She beat the guards and walked inside. There she met a man in a dapper suit with dark eyes and a sinister smirk. "So, you're the little busybody who thwarted our plans at Mount Moon," he said. "I am. And who might you be?" Mary asked. "I am Giovanni, the leader of Team Rocket. I'm a purveyor of rare Pokemon and other projects. Those projects need money, and those fossils would have put us much closer to more research," he said. "Research? Do you not mean crime?" Mary crossed her arms. "You say bad, I say necessary. There's a rare Pokemon out there that I need to recapture. Without it, Team Rocket will dissolve," he said. "Well, I cannot let you hurt any more innocent creatures," Mary said. "Fine. Then I'll just have to teach you a lesson." Giovanni pulled out a Pokeball. "Zubat! Lambchop! Thundershock!" Mary sent out her Flaffy. Lambchop zapped the small bat into submission easily. Giovanni sent out his next Pokemon, Tangela. Mary sent out Brutus, who used Aerial Ace and Ember to take down the Tangela, but not before it poisoned him with poison powder. Giovanni brought in Corsola, and Lambchop jumped back into battle. She was hit with a critical hit Bubble Beam, but dug in her feet and held on. Mary healed her up, then Bubble hardly made a scratch. Lambchop used Thundershock a couple of times, ending the battle. Lambchop began to glow, and Mary gasped. Lambchop glowed brighter and brighter until Ampharos has been registered to your Pokedex, beeped her guide. "Lambchop, you look beautiful!" Mary hugged her new Ampharos. Yes, it's all very touching," Giovanni huffed. "You raise your Pokemon with the utmost care and love. You would never understand what I wish to achieve. I'll be taking my leave. I hope our paths do not cross again." He pushed past her, and she barked at him. Mary's magic and her Pokemon needed a recharge, so they went back to Lavender Town for a long rest. The next morning, Mary left the Pokemon Center and smelled the familiar scent of Team Rocket. People in the town were talking about how Team Rocket had killed a Marowak, leaving a baby Cubone all alone. It was staying at Mr. Fuji's, but Mr. Fuji had now gone missing too. Mary followed the smell of Team Rocket to the town's tower. She sensed terrible magic inside and knew this was going to be a difficult climb. Unfortunately, she smelled someone else's familiar scent and found Jeffrey the moment she walked up to the second floor. "What are you doing here, Mary? Did one of your Pokemon die?" he asked. "No, I smelled—" He promptly cut her off. "Well, I can rectify that." Jeffrey smirked and sent out his first Pokemon, Pupitar. Mary sent in Nutcase, who used Giga Drain to defeat it, landing a critical hit. Jeffrey sent in Seal next, which Nutcase took down with Bullet Seed. Armaldo was the next opponent to face Giga Drain and Bullet Seed, falling to that palm tree. Jeffrey smirked and sent in Registeel. Mary swallowed nervously, knowing these things liked to explode. She withdrew Nutcase and brought in Brutus. Jeffrey decided to let Registeel power up by using Curse, but Brutus managed to take it down with Ember before it could use the stored power. Lastly came Marowak, which Brutus fought with Aerial Ace and defeated. Jeffrey huffed and pushed past her. He was seething with anger, but Mary didn't care. She knew there was some trouble happening in this tower. As she walked, she met fellow witches who were being controlled by malevolent spirits. Battling them somehow managed to free them from the ghosts. One battle, however, proved to be more than Mary was ready for. Cabby went up against a Snorlax. She used Howl to up her attack, but Snorlax used Belly Drum to cut its HP and maximize its attack. Cabby got in 2 bites before Snorlax retaliated with an overpowered headbutt. Cabby's eyes bugged out as she flew against a nearby wall and fell to the ground lifeless. Mary screamed for her Mightyena and pulled her into her arms. Broomy burst in and destroyed Snorlax with Dragon Claw as vengeance for Cabby. They left the tower, and Mary was desperate to save Cabby as she hurried to the Pokemon Center. She knew she had to bury her, then saw one revive for sale at the shop. She bought it and looked in the meadow where her Pokemon were. She looked to see if any of them needed the mercy of the life potion. Pina the Ludicolo was walking around sickly and coughing. Mary had her Pokedex do a health scan on her. The Pokedex told her Pina was very old and likely not going to make it much longer. Mary removed her from the meadow and took a very slow but long walk with her, explaining everything that had transpired. She would only use the potion if Pina wanted it. At the end of their walk, Pina agreed. When the potion was brewed and Cabby was laid out, Pina took the potion and allowed her life force to flow into Cabby. Pina looked peaceful when it was over, and Mary kissed her goodbye. Soon, Cabby's eyes fluttered open, and she looked around for Mary. When she saw her trainer, she got up and hobbled over to her, then promptly began licking her face happily. Mary hugged her and ruffled her fur over and over. She loved her Mightyena so much. Together, they tackled the tower again, this time defeating every foe without fail. The only failure they did encounter was a very stubborn Eevee who refused to be caught. Mary confronted a ghost that turned out to be the ghost of the Marowak that was killed by Team Rocket. She and her team helped put it to rest by battling it to release the anger. She promised to take care of those vile men. Mary and her team stormed the top floor where they found and defeated 4 Team Rocket grunts. Here she met Mr. Fuji, who smiled at her. "It seems you were the one to quell Marowak's spirit. I appreciate your help," he said. "Sir, you are free to leave now that those terrible men are gone," Mary assured him. "You misunderstand. I came here of my own free will. The baby Cubone has been living with me, and I wanted to help its mother cross over. Seems you were the one it really needed. Join me back at my house so I can properly thank you," he told her, and she followed him there. Mr. Fuji gave her a Pokeflute that could wake sleeping Pokemon. Mary used it on a sleeping Pokemon on Route 16. The Miltank that had been asleep attacked, and Lambchop helped Mary catch it. She named her Madonna. Mary also went up to Route 17 and got the HM Fly. The disc transfigured into Mary's broom, and Brutus touched it with his claw, learning the move as well. Next she flew over to Vermilion City, and then over to Route 12, and woke up a sleeping Blastoise that she managed to catch and name Bowser. And now, previously on Episode 6. Mary journeyed further down Route 12, during which she met a fisherman who gave her a super rod which allowed her to catch a Sharpedo, but it fainted from Icy's Fury Cutter. On Route 13, Mary ran into a powerful Nidoking that put up quite a fight, but was captured in the end and donned the name Barney. It was on Route 14 that something incredible happened. Mary stepped into the grass to catch another new Pokemon when lightning struck. Broomy burst from his ball, coiled around her, and ducked so they could avoid the lightning. When it cleared, a giant yellow condor-like bird flapped its strong wings in front of them. Her Pokedex went off like a siren. "Mary! This is a Zapdos, a legendary Pokemon like your Rayquaza. It is the brother to Moltres, a legendary Pokemon your sister Sarah caught. Quickly, you must capture it. It's your encounter." "Art thou certain? Couldn't we look for, I don't know, a smaller, tamer creature?" She gulped nervously. "Catch the lightning bird!" it replied, eager to put this information in its databanks. "Okay. Lambchop, assistance, please." Mary sent out her Ampharos while remaining coiled in Broomy's scales. Zapdos opened with Thunder Wave, paralyzing Lambchop, but she fought through it to return the favor. Lambchop used Thunder Shock and decided to teach this big bird a lesson for frightening her trainer. It was a critical hit that barely left it with any health. Mary almost fell over upon seeing how close she came to losing this encounter. She threw a Pokeball at it and it shook 3 times, then busted open. Zapdos was too weak to do much damage to Lambchop, so Mary threw another ball, and this one broke too. On her 3rd try, she, Broomy, and Lambchop watched it shake once, twice, 3 times, and click! "Zapdos has been registered to your Pokedex," chirped her encyclopedia. Good work! Holy potions of Merlin, this bird is extremely powerful. Mary picked up the ball and thought about his name. You must have started as a chick once, so thy name will be Chico, meaning young boy. They made camp for the night here so they could have a rest after walking 2 routes in a day. Nutcase took a spot in the shade, and Icy nestled in his branches for some sleep. Lamb Chop sat next to Mary, falling asleep pretty quickly, her head resting on her trainer's shoulder. Brutus curled himself up by the fire he'd made, sleeping with a smile on his snout. Cabby's head laid in Mary's lap, and she snored quietly. Broomy had stretched out completely, forming a perimeter around the camp with his body. Mary, laying against Broomy, laid awake thinking about her sisters and stroking Cabby as her Pokemon slept. Sarah had caught Chico's brother, Moltres. Brutus had been her very first Pokemon, and now Mary trained and took care of him. Sarah had accomplished much out here on her journey all by herself. That last part made Mary feel a little sick. By herself. While her little sister had never been without herself and Winifred, Sarah had been by herself for much of her life. Mary took care of Sarah to be sure, but she hadn't really sided with her since their father died. Even when Sarah got up the courage to stand up to Winifred back in the woods, she still didn't stand by her. These thoughts were starting to keep her up more at night, since being thrust into this world of magical creatures, knowing Sarah had defeated every challenge in her way. Mary now found herself in a similar situation of being alone and having to make decisions for herself. She was in charge of now 6 Pokemon, a feeling she'd never felt before. Winifred drifted into her thoughts now. How did she take charge of so many situations with such gusto? For that matter, keeping her and Sarah in check. Mary had to learn the personality of each of her Pokemon before figuring out how to train them. That's something Winnie never really did with the pair of them, and maybe that's why Sarah finally said something. If she had one moment she could do over. Mary settled in with Lamb Chop snuggling closer to her, and Cabby adjusted to remain close. Things will be different when I come home to you, sisters, Mary promised before falling asleep with Broomy adjusting his head so it met hers. The next morning they set out for Route 15, the last one before reaching their destination, Fuchsia City. Mary knew there would be a new encounter to grab, so they ventured into the nearest wild area. Mary's nose immediately picked up on a stench so foul it made any burned potion she'd ever brewed smell like a rose garden. That said, the smell was deriving from a patch of wildflowers where a pile of purple sludge was picking flowers and making them into a crown, even though it was kinda killing the flowers in the process. It plopped the crown of dead petals on its head and started off out of the patch when it saw Mary. Carefully, the sludge took the crown off of its head, daintily set it on a rock, and charged. Mary panicked and sent Icy out to attack, only for her to get hit with a sledge attack. Mary switched in Cabby, who brought it down to under half health. From there she brought in Broomy, just in case the monster attacked again. Mary threw a blue ball called a Great Ball, and click! Muck has been registered to your Pokedex, beeped the guide, then it beeped again. As it turns out, this is not just any Muck. Like Brutus, this Muck was once owned by Sarah Sanderson. Her name was a Muck, and she tragically died in a battle with the Saffron City gym leader. Sarah was heartbroken. It pulled up a photo of Sarah and a Muck. I've found another of Sister Sarah's old friends. Mary smiled and opened the ball. A Muck popped out and looked around. Mary grabbed her flower crown and walked over to her. Hello, Amok. You might remember being trained by this witch? She showed her the photo, and Amok gasped, then started clapping with a big smile. Well, I'm her older sister, Mary. You didn't get to finish the journey with her, but how about coming along with me, huh? Mary placed the crown on Amok's head. Amok, overjoyed, tackled Mary in a big, oozy hug. Mary, laughing, struggled under the weight of her new friend. I'll take that as a yes. Finally, they made it to Fuchsia City, where they rested up and put Amok in the meadow for now. Mary ventured over to Route 18 briefly, where she caught a Duskull named Grim. Here in Fuchsia City, there was a place called the Safari Zone, where Mary could catch one new Pokemon per area in the zone. She went in and managed to come out with a Numel named Camel, a Paris named Toadette, a Snorunt called Dorito, and a Giraffarig called Toys R Us, as given to her by a passing trainer, and for some reason her Pokemon liked it. She was also given the move Surf, and she found a set of gold teeth, which she returned to the safari's old warden in exchange for the move Strength. There was an old fisherman in the town who asked her for help in getting a Pokemon called Granbull out of his pond in his backyard, to which she obliged and caught it. Georgia joined the Pokemon in the meadow. Now at this point, Mary knew there was a gym coming, so she took her Pokemon out to train. While doing so, there were many trainers who wanted to battle her team, and they did so flawlessly. Until one trainer walked up with a legendary Pokemon called Suicune. Icy was putting up a grand fight against the beast, and nailed it with Slash, taking it down. Or so they thought. Mary and Icy celebrated too soon because the Suicune had 1 health point left. It fired off a bubble beam from where it laid on the ground and killed Icy. Mary picked her up as Nutcase finished the Suicune off with an angry bullet seed. Icy looked up at Mary, who started to cry. I'll brew a life potion for you. You'll be fine, she sniffed, but Icy shook her head weakly. She pointed to the water in the distance of Fuchsia City. Mary shook her head, but Icy touched her cheek with one of her legs and gave a smile with her eyes, then passed on. Your death will not be in vain, Icy. I promise thee you will live on in each of us. I will pass this test for you. Mary hugged her close and carried her all the way back to Fuchsia City, where she buried her in the graves. Now she had a decision to make as to who she should add to her team. Icy had pointed to the water before passing, as if to say she needed a water-type Pokemon, so she chose to add Bowser to her team. Now it was time to get serious. She lost Icy, and her death was the building block of Mary and her Pokemon's next step in their journey. She trained hard and prepared to face the 5th gym. And now? Previously on episode 7. Mary and her Pokemon, now with Bowser the Blastoise at her side, approached the Fuchsia City gym. Like usual, the typing on the sign was scratched out. Mary walked into the gym, started walking towards the gym leader, and smacked into an invisible wall. At first, she thought it might have been salt, but then realized this was some sort of foreign magic at work. She looked at the plaque on the wall. Gym Leader Koga welcomes you to the training grounds of the Ninja Warriors. Prepare to fight to the finish. Mary gulped and pressed the Pokeballs closer to her hip. They fought through all of the ninjas in training flawlessly. Bowser got a chance to show off his battling prowess, and Mary knew she had chosen the right replacement for Icy's slot on the team. Her ninjask had been right. She needed a water type. After navigating their way through the invisible walls, they approached the gym leader's perch. He sat in a meditative stance, but his eyes opened, and he stood to face her. So, you have defeated all of my students. It takes a cunning warrior to make it this far in my domain, he spoke. I have a reason to fight thee, Mary said strongly. Then a fight you shall have. I normally use poison-type Pokemon, but for you, I want to test your skills with other warriors. Prepare yourself for a battle with a ninja master, he exclaimed and threw out his first Pokemon, Jirachi! Broomy, clean up his team, Mary sent out her partner. Broomy burst into battle and glared down at the small mythical Pokemon. He did not underestimate his opponent, as mythical Pokemon possess great powers. Broomy used Crunch and took it down to half health. Jirachi's Psychic took a chunk of health from Broomy as well, but his second Crunch took care of his foe. Mary cheered for her partner, and Broomy smiled at her. Koga sent in Rhydon next, and to keep her partner safe, Mary withdrew Broomy and sent in Bowser. One Water Pulse from her Blastoise took down the rocky foe. Next came a Shedinja, which saw Mary ordering Bowser to use Bite and take it down quickly. His last Pokemon was a Skitty that fell victim to Bowser's Surf. Between Broomy's strong opener and Bowser taking down the other 3, Mary came out victorious. Koga walked over to her and her 2 Pokemon. He thumped a fist over her heart. You have the heart of a true warrior, Mary Sanderson. You put your faith in your partners and you commanded them flawlessly. You are a fine leader, and your skills will continue to sharpen every day. Take the soul badge. You deserve it, he said, and gave her the 5th badge she needed. Mary pinned it to her cloak. Thank you, Master Koga. You flatter me for skills I do not possess. She blushed, but Koga shook his head. If you did not possess leadership qualities in the past, you are beginning to now, he assured her. With those final words, Mary and her Pokemon set off for Saffron City by Broom. Brutus and Broomy flew on either side of Mary as they traveled. She wasn't used to being in the center of a trio, but her Pokemon looked to her for guidance, so she obliged. It took the better part of the day to reach their next destination, so they checked into the Pokemon Center for the night. While laying in bed, Mary thought of her blossoming qualities and wondered if this would please Winifred, or if it would just upset her. She slept soundly, knowing the next day would bring another battle and hopefully another gym badge. Early the next morning, Mary explored Saffron City and found the gym, but it was closed and being guarded by a man in a Team Rocket uniform. "Bats and beetles, not them again," she muttered, trying to look inconspicuous as she passed by. "Psst! You there!" a voice called to her. She looked over towards the sound and saw a trainer peeking out of what looked like a smaller gym. "Yeah, you in the red cape. Come here." "Why do you summon me?" she asked him upon approach. "We need some help," he said, and brought her inside, looking over at the rocket grunt. "Help with what?" she asked. "Team Rocket has all but shut down our city while they search for some kind of super Pokeball. Nobody can get in or out of town. The fact that you got in tells me you're a strong trainer who might be able to kick them out of Saffron," he explained. "Well, I have fought these brats before," Mary admitted, "but I am not the one you seek. You're our only chance of freeing the city from their grasp. If you're not feeling confident, take on our trainers in the fighting dojo. If you can take us down, you're at least on par with Team Rocket. If you beat me too, I'll give you some extra protection to take on Team Rocket." Mary, who had yet to learn how to say no, fought through the trainers in the fighting dojo, including their leader. Mary was given a new Pokemon called Ralts that she named Peggy. She held up her end of the bargain and approached the organization's base of operations, Sylph Company. She snuck inside and immediately smelled two people she didn't care to run into again, Giovanni and Jeffrey. She shook her head and almost walked back out the door, but she made a deal and she stuck to it. This place was a maze unlike any Mary had ever been through before. She would step on seemingly innocent tiles, then be teleported to another area of the building. To keep from getting lost, Mary decided to hone in on scents of the places she had been before and follow her nose away from them, keeping Jeffrey's scent at the front of her senses. She did loot the place while she was there to increase her own supplies while depleting Team Rocket's at the same time. A win-win situation for her. Finally, after a very long trek through the building, Mary stumbled upon Jeffrey. He saw her and did a double take. "Have you been trapped in the building this whole time, too?" he asked her. "No, I only arrived in town yesterday. The trainers at the fighting dojo asked me to drive out Team Rocket," Mary replied, and Jeffrey scoffed. "I could have done it by now if I wanted to waste my energy on those weaklings." He laughed, but Mary knew he was bluffing. "So I guess I better test your skills for myself to see why they think you're so great." "I don't think now is the appropriate time for a battle, Jeffrey. I suggest we form a calming circle and we can work together to— Go, Shedinja! Why do I even bother talking to thee?" Mary sighed. "Brutus, aerial ace." Shedinja dropped like a rock. Poliwag came in next, and Mary brought in Lamb Chop to thunder punch it and knock it out. Marowak jumped into battle, so Bowser took the stage. His surf attack, boosted by the rain that Poliwag had set up, knocked out the foe quickly. Jeffrey sent in Ivysaur and Brutus came back into the fight, but he was hit with sleep powder. Mary shouted for him to wake up, and he did. Aerial Ace took down Ivysaur, and the Pichu that came in met Flamethrower. Jeffrey cursed, took his team, and went to another part of the building. "His team was better the last time I fought him," Mary chuckled. One of the hostages approached her and thanked her for all she had done so far. He gave her a Pokemon called Kangaskhan that she named Kanga. Mary took a deep sniff of the air. Giovanni is next. How right she was. She walked into the CEO's office and found Giovanni threatening him. "Hand over the Master Ball or you'll meet a premature end, old man," he barked. "We have no such ball in our possession," the president pleaded. "I swear." "I know you're lying. Give it to me." "Am I interrupting something?" Mary asked casually. Giovanni turned and glared at her. "You again? Why can't you just leave well enough alone?" "I was sent here by the townsfolk to oust you from their home. I made a deal, and I do not break my promises," she replied. "Then you and I shall settle this once and for all, child," he snapped. "Child?" Mary looked confused when her Pokedex beeped. "Your guise in this realm looks different to these people. To them, you look like nothing more than a teenager," it informed her. "Ah, that would explain much," Mary said, pulling out a Pokeball as Giovanni sent in his first Pokemon, Surskit. "Well, here we go again." Brutus, aerial ace. Brutus took down the bug with one swipe. He grinned at Mary, who clapped and congratulated him. His Totodile was no match for Nutcase's Giga-Drain, and his Tentacruel met the same fate at the hands of her Exeggutor's psychic attack. Mary hugged Nutcase after calling him back. She had grown very close to him since catching him so early on. Nutcase felt the same towards her. As Giovanni sent in a mythical Pokemon called Mew, Mary called on Cabby to come teach it a lesson. Mew pulled a fancy trick and turned into Cabby with Transform. Cabby had to boost her attack power with a couple of howls before she could make much of a dent in her foe. Cabby fought against herself valiantly, and the true Mightyena came out on top. Cabby howled proudly as Mary hugged her around the neck. Cabby licked Mary's face as Giovanni realized he'd lost to her yet again. He growled in frustration. "I have no more Pokemon that can fight," he grumbled. "You may have thwarted me this time, child, but you will not stop me again. Sylph may be safe for now, but I will return." Giovanni and all of Team Rocket fled the building and left Saffron City. Mary was rewarded for her efforts with the prototype of the Master Ball that Team Rocket had wanted. It was designed to catch any Pokemon without fail. Mary wasn't sure what type of creature she might use this on, but after all the battling, she was exhausted. She went back to the Pokemon Center to sleep and prepare to fight the 6th gym come the next morning. Like Silphco's ridiculous maze, the gym also had those magic tiles that teleported Mary hither and thither across the place. Using her nose, she identified someone with powers inside. It had to be the gym leader. When she finally found her, Mary knew she was a witch. The gym leader looked at her and nodded. "I am Sabrina, the seer of this world. I see through your childlike disguise, Mary Sanderson. You are a fully grown witch on a mission the same as your sister Sarah," she said, and Mary gasped. "You fought my sister? No other gym leader has said anything about her." "I am the only one who remembers her. When she left this place, our world was cleansed of any memory of her existence, all but her Pokemon, of which you have caught 2, and me. My powers prevent any sort of memory tampering. She lost her entire team to me the first time she challenged me. Only on the second bout did she succeed." Sabrina paused and closed her eyes. "You are far more methodical than Sarah Sanderson. I feel your outcome will be different, so indulge me in a battle and prove me right." "I will prove to thee that I am as strong as my sister," Mary vowed. Sabrina sent in her first Pokemon, Azumarill. Mary sent in Cabby, who took a hit and dealt one, but as their opponent was bulky and a water type, both felt it was smarter to change tactics. Mary called Cabby back to her side and sent in Lambchop. Lambchop was barely hurt by Bubble Beam, and returned the move with a Thunder Punch that knocked it out. Next came Licky Tongue, which Lambchop fought with 2 Brick Break attacks and ended it. Sharpedo was defeated by a powerful Thunder Punch, and Lambchop was on a roll. That roll was cut short when Sabrina sent in Regirock. Mary called Lambchop back and sent in Bowser to fight. Mary knew these things like to explode, so she treaded carefully. Regirock opened with a superpower attack that hit Bowser pretty hard, but he still stood strong. Sabrina had Regirock use Curse to boost its stats. This was good. Bowser Surf connected, but it lived with 3 health points. Sabrina chose to heal, and this was the opening Mary needed. "Full power Surf, Bowser," she commanded. Her Blastoise blasted water from its cannons and blacked out the Regirock with a critical hit. Mary and her team won the battle. Lambchop had done a lot of the groundwork, but Bowser took on the scariest of the foes. Cabby, of course, was thanked too. Sabrina walked over to them and nodded. "You indeed proved me right. You achieved what your little sister could not. You defeated me on your first try. As reward, your 6th badge, the Marsh Badge." She presented Mary with her 6th badge, and she pinned it to her cloak. "You raise your Pokemon well. They have genuine love for you." "Thank you," Mary said. "I work hard. It shows." Mary left Saffron and checked her map to see where they needed to go next. It looked like the 7th gym was on a far-off island. Mary flew back to Fuchsia to depart for Route 19 from there, but the winds were far too strong to fly. Bowser hopped in the water and had Mary climb on. They'd surf to Cinnabar Island. Along the route, they caught a Kabutops that Mary named Scissors. On Route 20, she caught a Skiploom that was named 7-Up. The Pokédex suggested it, as Sarah's Skiploom had been called Sprite. Mary made camp in the Seafoam Islands, where she caught a Shroomish named Cabbage. She sensed a powerful presence in the area, but she wasn't ready to fight that yet. The next morning, they realized there was no way around the rocks, so Mary consulted her map. All that progress just to realize they were at a dead end. They surfed back to Fuchsia, then flew over to Pallet Town, where she needed to go down from. While here, she took a moment to fish and ended up pulling a drowning Tauros from the water. She caught him and named him El Toro. Bowser surfed over to Route 21, where they caught a Dragonite named Fiona. Mary's meadow was growing more populated by the day, and she was proud to have so many Pokemon to take back to show Winifred and Sarah. She was especially excited to get Brutus and Amok back to Sarah. Bowser carried Mary on his back to Cinnabar Island, where Mary caught Needle the Weedle in the waters. She decided to check out Cinnabar Science Center to see if anyone could give her some intel on the 7th gym. No one was helpful on that front, but she did find some kind of necromancer who revived the dome fossil she got way back in Mount Moon. She got a Togepi named Benedict. She went to the gym but found it locked, and the note on the door said that the key was lost somewhere in Pokemon Mansion, so that was her next stop. It was beginning to get dark, but she pressed on. Nutcase accidentally knocked out her encounter in the mansion, but after venturing through a maze of moving walls and fighting burglars, Mary found the gym's key. She was exhausted and decided to head to the Pokemon Center for some sleep. And now, previously on episode 8, Mary and her re-energized team walked through the doors of Cinnabar Gym. This was her penultimate badge. Win this, and she only had 2 more tasks to complete to go home to her sisters. That of winning her final badge and winning the Pokemon League, just as her Pokedex had said. Her Pokemon would go home with her, and Winifred would be pleased with all of her hard work. And on the off chance that she wasn't, it didn't really matter. She loved all of her Pokemon so much. Taking Brutus and Amok back to Sarah would just make her return even sweeter. She'd be her little sister's hero. All she had to do was keep up her winning streak, and she did. Every gym trainer fell to her powerful team, and after every victory she praised them. They approached the gym leader at last. He was an older gentleman of proud stature, wearing a long lab coat. He looked Mary up and down. "I am Blaine, Cinnabar Gym Leader. It's been a while since someone managed to fight every trainer in my gym and win without losing a single Pokemon. Color me impressed. This presents a dilemma for me. Should I battle you with my blazing team of fire types, or my other team that may present more of a challenge to you?" he pondered. "Whichever you choose, we shall not back down," Mary said confidently. "Then allow me to use my second team and test your skills," Blaine said, pulling a set of Pokeballs from a different station. "Slowbro! I choose you to fight, Cabby!" Mary unleashed her Mightyena, who howled loudly. Cabby tore into the Slowbro with Bite, knocking it below half health. Slowbro used Defense Curl to raise its defensive stats, but it didn't matter. Cabby came in with another Bite at critical power. Slowbro went down and was replaced by Pichu, which she defeated with another critical bite. Cabby howled, then hunkered down for her next opponent. Mary smiled at her and allowed her to keep battling. Mary remembered how her Pokedex had said that this Pokemon was specifically selected for her, and now she knew why. Cabby was fiercely loyal to Mary now that they'd bonded, and she fought tooth and nail to impress her. Mary saw a lot of herself in Cabby, and trusted her to do a great job in battle. Blaine sent in Ekans, which Cabby chomped down on with Bite. Ekans was so hurt and terrified from the attack that it was paralyzed with fear, opening the door for Cabby to bite it again and leave only 2 health points remaining. Blaine healed Ekans, but Cabby kept up her merciless onslaught. Blaine had to heal again to keep his Pokemon fighting. Yet, Cabby continued to pummel the purple snake. Finally, it went down and he sent in his last Pokemon, Haunter. Mary knew ghost types were weak to dark types and shared a nod with Cabby. "Bite at full strength!" she commanded. Cabby bounded towards the Haunter, jumped, and sank her fangs into the ghost. It fainted immediately, and Cabby howled. Mary screamed in admiration for her Mightyena and ran over to her. She grabbed her in a huge hug, and Cabby licked her face over and over. Mary hugged her for a long time. "I am so proud of thee! Thou hast defeated a gym all by yourself. Who's my good girl? Huh? Huh?" Cabby yipped and licked her face again, her tail wagging 1,000,000 miles an hour. "That's right, you are! You are!" Blaine walked up to them, clapping. That is the most impressive specimen of a Mightyena I have ever had the pleasure of battling. She's been raised with the utmost love and care. This breed of Pokemon only becomes loyal to the most skilled of trainers, and from what I witnessed today, you are no exception. You've earned my badge, he said, and gave her the penultimate badge, the Volcano badge. Mary pinned it to her cloak. I expect to see you excel in the Pokemon League. I will not let you down, Mary promised. She exited the gym shortly after and found the man she'd helped turn back from a Pokemon way back at the start of her adventure. Hey, Mary, long time no see, he said. You remember me? My name's Bill. Yes, I remember thee. I turned you back into a human, Mary recalled. That's right. Well, hey, since we've run into each other again, what do you say about a little expedition? I'm waiting for my buddy's boat to come get me and take me to one island. It might provide you with an opportunity to catch some rare Pokemon. I've heard there were some sightings of legendary Pokemon out there. Mary considered the offer quietly. She needed to get going to the next gym as soon as possible, but she was really enjoying her journey with her Pokemon, and she was getting really good at catching them. She'd already caught the legendary bird Zapdos. Maybe challenging another mythical beast would help her skills grow even more. It couldn't hurt. Besides, she could catch more Pokemon to take back with her to Purgatory. Maybe she could even find another one of Sarah's. A little more time out in this world couldn't set her back too much. Finally, she responded. I'd love to accompany thee to the island. She accepted the invitation just as a boat pulled up to the dock. That's great. Let's get aboard and head off for adventure. Bill smiled, and the pair boarded the ship. It wasn't a short trip to one island, so Mary got some rest in one of the cabins. Cabby slept at her feet while her other Pokemon remained in their Pokeballs. It was a small room. When the boat docked, Mary followed Bill to shore, where he introduced her to his friend. His buddy needed some help fixing the PC system on the islands out here, so Bill volunteered to help. He'd planned to visit another friend, a rock collector, but now he was stuck. Could you deliver this meteorite I have for him, Mary? I'd really appreciate it since you're exploring anyway. He's over on 2 Island, runs the game corner. It's only an hour trip, and you can go whenever you're ready since you've got the boat pass, Bill told her. I'd be delighted, Mary lied. She just wanted to explore, but Bill did bring her here, so she owed him. First, though, Mary fished in the harbor and caught an oddish named Radish. Mary saw a small beach in the distance and surfed down on Bowser, where she caught a Sneasel on Treasure Beach, which was named Bless You. Mary thought it was funny since the Pokemon was called Sneasel. On Kendall Road, however, she was jumped by a huge black and yellow lion with a white belly. It had a purple mane, long silver fangs, silver claws, and a lightning bolt tail. Her Pokedex went crazy. Mary, it's a Raikou! Raikou is one of the great legendary beasts, but it has a move that makes it nearly impossible to catch. Its move Roar will end any battle immediately. You have to snag it quickly. The man we saved in Saffron City gave me this ball. She pulled out the Master Ball and held it in her palm. Perhaps I should use it on this one. Bill said there were sightings of legendary Pokemon, and I will not lose it. Mary threw the Master Ball, and click! Raikou has been registered to your Pokedex, beeped her guide. Hello, Aslan. I hope we become good friends, Mary said to the Pokemon inside the ball. My sensors are picking up another legendary Pokemon in the area, but it is farther off. I suggest resting for a bit before continuing the hunt. Mary did so at the hot spring up ahead. She sat with her feet in the water next to Brutus while the other 5 splashed in the warm pool. Mary watched them with a smile, petting Brutus as he laid his head on her lap. He might have been Sarah's first, but he and Mary had forged a strong bond with each other. A man saw how she looked upon her Pokemon and told her anyone who could tame the mighty Rayquaza should have this. He gave her the move Rock Smash, which she later taught to Broomy. Mary decided to wait on hunting for another legendary and set off for 2 Island. Here, she was able to stock up on supplies before going to the game corner to deliver Bill's present. What she found inside was a very distraught man pacing the floor. Excuse me, Mary said. Where, oh where, is Lostel? My daughter should have been here an hour ago, he muttered. Excuse me, Mary said again. She's always here this time of day. Where could she be? He mumbled. Sir, Mary yelled, and he finally saw her. I have a package for thee from thy friend Bill. Oh, I can't accept anything until I find my daughter. She's missing. She always brings me my lunch this time of day, and she's an hour late. I'm so worried my little cutie's hurt or worse. You seem like a capable teenage trainer. Mary had briefly forgotten that her appearance was hidden from everyone in this region. Could you please find her? I promise I'll take the package then, but I just can't think of anything else besides my daughter right now. I'm sure I can manage it, Mary exhaled, feigning enthusiasm when she really just wanted to catch some more Pokemon. Thank you so much. We live on 3 Island. She must be over there somewhere, he exclaimed and practically shoved her out the door. Mary had a more sinister thought cross her mind as the prospect of sniffing out a child presented itself. She tried to catch a Pokemon at Cape Brink first, but the Graveler decided to explode, and Nutcase barely survived, so Mary healed up and moved right along. When she reached 3 Island, there was a cave that led her to grass in the port, where she found a Shedinja. Missing Icy terribly, and knowing she never had the chance to use her first Shedinja, she caught Ice and sent it to the PC. As she planned to make her way up the town road, there was a commotion blocking her path. A group of miscreants on noisy machines were threatening the local shop owners. Mary needed buy, so she and her team made short work of them. Mary and her Pokemon were praised by the shop owners, who told her those guys had been raising chaos since they arrived 3 days prior. Fortunately, she was able to move on, but Nutcase accidentally killed their lantern encounter with Giga Drain. In Berry Forest, she caught a Poliwhirl named Roly. Finally, Mary picked up on a familiar scent. It smelled like the game corner. I smell a child, she smirked and followed her nose. She found a little girl being attacked by a Spearow. A lunchbox lay at her feet. This was Lostel. Mary sent in Broomy, who knocked out the Spearow with Rock Slide. Lostel ran over and hugged her tight, crying. Mary got the smell up her nose and she felt a growl begin in her throat. It would be so easy. No one would know. But then she saw Broomy. Broomy peeked his head down to Lostel and nuzzled her cheek with his nose. She turned and looked at him. Broomy grinned and made her laugh. She hugged his face, and Mary saw how happy her Pokemon was too. Broomy lifted Lostel onto his back and carried her the entire way out of the forest. Lostel talked Mary's ear off the whole time, but she remained silent. Even when they got back to 2 Island and returned the girl to her father, she stayed quiet. Mary finally handed over Bill's package and left the house. She found a quiet spot and let out a long breath. What was that? She let the kid go? She rescued it? Broomy popped out of his ball and coiled around her lovingly, rubbing his nose against her cheek. Her Pokedex beeped. That test was made to see if you could resist the dark temptation you normally succumb to. Congratulations, you passed, it said. You did the right thing returning the girl to her father. That was the hardest test I've faced in a long time, she admitted. Remember why you are here, Mary. You are earning your chance at life again, and to do that, you must choose the hard path, it said, before quieting again. 'Tis time I returned to my own hunt. Mary tried putting what happened out of her mind, and returned to 1 Island, where she set out to find the other legendary Pokemon in the area. She had quite the hike ahead of her. She walked up Kendall Road and surfed on Bowser for part of the trek. They landed at the foot of Mount Ember, which was a very large mountain. Mary made camp for the night with her Pokemon just off the beach and rested. The events of the day played over in her head, preventing her from sleeping until Brutus snuggled up behind her, Lambchop hugged her from the front, and Cabby snoozed at her feet. Bowser and Nutcase slept close by, all of them surrounded by Broomy's coiling body. Was she changing and she just didn't realize it? Was this what her journey was really about? Did Sarah go through this sort of test too? She'd have to ask when she returns. With her Pokemon by her side, Mary went to sleep. Now the hike up the mountain was as difficult physically as the test to find Lostel had been mentally. Mary's encounter up there was a Registeel that she promptly ran away from, as those things like to explode, and this one was not getting that chance. It took hours upon hours before she reached the top, and when she did, there levitated a beautiful red and white dragon. Mary held up her Pokedex. Latios, a legendary Pokemon, a dragon and psychic type. Catch rate, low, it reported. Well, let's do our best. Lambchop, Thunderwave! Mary sent in her Ampharos, who did just that. Latios retaliated with a luster purge attack that nearly killed Lamb Chop. Mary called her back and sent in Cabby, who was immune to the psychic moves. Cabby helped Mary weaken it enough to start throwing balls. Latios knew the move Recover, which allowed it to heal in battle, making this a bit more difficult. Cabby had to keep using Bite and Strength to knock it back down for Mary to throw Pokeballs, but Latios refused to go in. Her Pokedex hadn't been lying when it said the catch rate on this dragon was low. Mary's Pokeballs broke over and over as Latios didn't even allow one shake to get in. After hours of Recover being used and Cabby weakening it, Mary was beginning to get tired and frustrated. Cabby was panting and exhausted. She went in for one last attempt at Bite, and it came out at critical power. Latios fainted, then teleported away. Mary dropped to her knees, and Cabby fell over looking defeated. All of that work for nothing. Even Cabby looked appalled at the result. Mary tousled her mighty Inna's fur, and they looked at each other. "If it wasn't meant to be, it was not meant to be," Mary told her. They spent the night on the ship back to Cinnabar Island, sleeping soundly. Her Pokedex told her its sensors picked up on 2 other legendary pulses in the region. One was just off of Route 10, and the other was in Seafoam Islands. Mary was tired of islands for a little while, so she chose to go seek out the one off of Route 10. Bowser carried her down to the place the pulse was coming from, where they found a building. It was a power plant. Inside, they found a Xatu that they named Madam. When they found the legendary Pokemon, it was another Registeel. Truthfully speaking, Mary didn't even want it, but she was here, so she tried. For hours. She wasted so many Pokeballs, but the thing ended up struggling itself into fainting, and it fled and disappeared right after. So Mary went back to Cerulean City. Here she rested and prepared to find the final legendary Pokemon the next day in the Seafoam Islands. And now... Previously on Episode 9, Mary, upon Bowser's back, set sail toward the Seafoam Islands. Her Pokedex said that there was one more legendary Pokemon inside the island caves for her to test her skills against. She wanted to capture at least one more before she returned to Purgatory with all of her Pokemon. It took all day to surf to the islands, but Bowser stayed strong through all of it. He would occasionally need a rest on a rock, and during those rests, Mary would feed him some berries to keep his strength up and pet him lovingly. Bowser still felt very new to the team, even though he'd been with Mary since Gym 5. He hadn't been as close to her as the others, but sailing the waters of Kanto with her riding atop his back filled him with joy. Mary loved him too. Finally, as night fell, they reached the Seafoam Islands once more to camp. Bright and early the next morning, Mary stepped into the icy caverns and began to explore. With the help of her Pokemon, she solved a puzzle that required the strategic moving of boulders. Mary had to come at it with a discerning eye, or it would reset itself, as she figured out. But once she and Bowser approached a small island in the center of the cave's glacial waters, Mary understood why the waters were so crystal clear. She held up her Pokedex. Suicune, a water-type legendary Pokemon. It is called the North Wind and travels to tainted waters, using its powers to purify them, it said. Catch rate, low. Well, this is my last chance to prove I deserve to raise the other 3 legendary beasts I have tamed. Mary took a deep breath as she approached the blue lion with a purple mane that flowed like her sister Sarah's cloak. It nodded to her and crouched ready to battle. Lamb Chop! Thunder Wave! Lamb Chop took a bubble beam to the chest, but her Thunder Wave landed. Mary withdrew Lamb Chop and chose to fight water with water. Bowser came in and helped Mary weaken the Suicune down to red with Water Pulse, and then added Confusion status that made the legendary beast hit itself. Mary threw ball after ball at Suicune, and every time it broke out. It kept staring her down as if trying to read her mind. Mary maintained eye contact with the Suicune every time it broke out of her Pokeballs. It watched her continuing to try to catch it before Mary finally spoke. I will prove to thee that I am worthy of being thy trainer, of being the trainer of Zapdos, Raikou, and my beloved Rayquaza. I will not back down. With that, she threw another ball, and Suicune pressed it to her nose. Mary held her breath as it shook once, twice, 3 times. Click! Suicune has been registered to your Pokedex, beeped her guide. Mary picked up the ball and smiled at it. Between thy discerning eyes, thy beauty, thy grace, and thy purple flowing mane, I shall name thee after my sister Sarah. Sarah, thank you for choosing me, Mary said lovingly. Mary left the Seafoam Islands with Sarah in her pocket. Broomy burst from his ball and roared kindly to Mary, who had brought out her broom, Brutus popping out as well. He gestured at his back and grinned. Mary smiled and climbed on Broomy's shoulders, and he took off into the sky with Brutus by his side. Mary had yet to ride either of her flying Pokemon, but she was disappointed in herself for not doing it sooner. She couldn't help letting out an exhilarated yell from atop her Rayquaza. Her map said the last gym was in the first city she had traveled to back at the beginning of her journey, Viridian City. Broomy and Brutus flew with Mary all the way back to Viridian City and landed in front of the Pokemon Center. Mary slept at the center and dreamt of her final battle the next day. When she and her team entered the gym, she sniffed the air and smelled Giovanni in the building. Mary skeptically battled her way through the gym trainers until she approached the gym leader. It wasn't possible. It was Team Rocket's leader? He smirked at her gloatingly. So you've made it back to me, he snorted. You came here for a badge from Viridian's gym leader, did you? Well, you'll be battling me instead. And I shall defeat thee as I have every time before. You and your band of criminals capture Pokemon for profit, not love. I will make you free every last one you have poached, she declared. Try your best, he snarled. This time I'm not holding back. Mightyena! Giovanni sent out his own Mightyena. Cabby, take out this inferior wolf, she sent in her canine partner. Use strength! Cabby slammed her body into her foe of her same species. The male Mightyena used Scary Face to slow her down. It used Takedown, but Cabby laughed it off. She used Strength again and plowed into the Mightyena. Giovanni chose to heal his canine, but Cabby slammed him again. She kept running, taking minimal damage from the male and fighting through confusion that was inflicted upon her. Cabby used Strength one more time through confusion and knocked out the male Mightyena. Mary cheered for her loudly. Thou art the superior Mightyena, Cabby. Now return to my side. Mary withdrew her as Giovanni sent in Marowak. Nutcase, 'tis your turn. Her executor stomped his feet and used Giga Drain. Marowak went down like a sack of rocks. Giovanni sent in Croconaw, which also saw a battle with Nutcase. Nutcase took a couple of bites while using Bullet Seed, but in the end he was victorious. Seadra was brought in next, so Mary decided to let Nutcase rest and brought in Lambchop. Lambchop was the very first Pokemon she'd caught on her journey, and she hadn't let her down once. Lambchop took a twister, but retaliated with an electrifying thunder punch that smashed into the seahorse. Giovanni begrudgingly sent in his final Pokemon, Silcoon. Mary almost laughed out loud at such a weak attempt. Lambchop was brought back, and in came Brutus. He never got to fight a full gym challenge with Sarah, but he was going to deal the finishing blow with Mary. Use Flamethrower and end this battle, she ordered. Brutus let out a roar, and flames exploded from his throat. Silcoon was practically incinerated. Mary defeated Giovanni for the last time. Brutus let out another victorious roar as Giovanni fell to his knees. She approached him with her 4 Pokemon standing behind her. He looked up at her, and she growled. Release your Pokemon, she demanded. Giovanni, reluctantly, released every Pokemon in his possession. He stood up and took something from his jacket. I enjoyed our battle, he said in shock. You reminded me what it means to be a trainer. Your Pokemon respect you, and they followed your commands to the letter. A long time ago, my Pokemon did the same, back when I was the gym leader of Viridian City. He handed her a badge. The Earth badge is yours. Take it as proof of your victory here, and of your victory of Team Rocket, which is henceforth disbanded. Mary took the 8th badge and pinned it to her cloak. This was the last badge she needed to collect. Winifred and Sarah were just one more step away. She had to beat the Pokemon League. Mary had nothing nice to say to Giovanni. Their battle had spoken more than what words could convey. She left the gym with her head held high and her team intact. She checked her map and started off for Route 22, where Jeffrey was waiting for her. Mary let out a growl again as he approached her. So, you've got 8 badges now too, huh? I most certainly do, she said proudly. So we're both heading to the Pokemon League. It seems that way. Well, how about I show you just how far out of your league you are? I won't lose this time, he declared, and Mary rolled her eyes. Let's go, Charmeleon. Cabby, crunch this inferior fire type, Mary commanded. Her Mightyena used Crunch and knocked it below half health. Charmeleon used Flamethrower and it hurt, but Cabby crunched again and defeated it. She even learned the move Thief as a result of the fight as well. Next came Slacking, which Mary decided to fight with Broomy. He became confused from the Swagger attack, but the opponent's ability Truant only let it attack every other turn. A side effect of Swagger was that Broomy's attack stats were heightened. 2 Dragon Claws took out the Slacking, and Azumarill came in next, to be defeated by the overpowered Sky Serpent. His Carvanha lost too as soon as it came out. Poliwrath was next, but Broomy roared and continued fighting. He took down the Poliwrath with 2 Dragon Claws. It was making Mary laugh to see how terribly Jeffrey's plan to confuse her dragon had backfired. His last Pokemon was Marowak. It was starter versus starter now. Broomy knocked it out with 2 Dragon Claws, and Mary stood victorious. Broomy roared proudly and flew behind his trainer. He pressed his cheek against hers. All right, fine, you beat me again. But I know you're going to have more of a challenge in the Pokemon League. I'll beat you there and become champion first, he swore, then ran off. He shall try his best, but we will stand tall at the end, Mary promised Broomy, who nuzzled her cheek. That's my boy. Together with her team of 6 Pokemon, Mary traversed through Route 23. She caught a Sentret named Rocket as she approached the mouth of Victory Road. Mary made camp for the night, intending to tackle the caves in the morning. She slept with her Pokemon at her side and wondered what laid ahead of her. The next morning, she entered Victory Road and accidentally lost her final encounter, which was a Sharpedo. Mary took the opportunity to train her Pokemon hard as they hiked through the caverns. They faced trainers, they solved puzzles, and they trained themselves until they were worn out. When they finally reached the end of the caves, night had fallen again, and ahead of them was the Indigo Plateau. The Pokemon League was just up the hill. Mary set up camp for one last time. She made her Pokemon a meal of fresh berries and ate some herself. Lambchop ate her food with a big smile on her face. Nutcase practically absorbed the nutrients from the berries, all 3 faces grinning. Bowser munched on his food happily, smiling at Mary after every 3rd bite. Cabby ate her fill of berries, sitting right next to Mary, tail wagging. Brutus would roast his berries with small embers before devouring them. He offered one to Mary, who took it and ate it politely, even if it was more charcoal than berry at that point. Broomy, however, ate his fill, then spent the rest of the night staring at Mary, then at the starry skies. It was almost as if he was contemplating something deeply. Even after all the other Pokemon went to sleep, he stared at the sky. Mary noticed his behavior and climbed up on his shoulders. She scratched his head lovingly. "What's the matter, Broomy?" she asked him. He moaned as she continued petting him. "Are you worried about tomorrow?" He nodded. "We'll be all right. You'll see. Have I steered you wrong yet?" He shook his head. "Don't worry. We'll win this tournament, and then you and the others will come home with me. You shall meet my family, and we'll be happy, all of us together. I promise." Broomy twisted a bit so their eyes met, and he nuzzled her face. After that, he settled down, and they slept through the night, ready to attack the Pokemon League the next day. And now. Previously on the finale of Mary Sanderson Plays Pokemon Fire Red. Okay, friends, we have made it. You have all worked so very hard to help me get here. Without all of you, I would never have survived this trial. Let's take one moment of silence for Icy before we go in. Mary was giving a pep talk to her team on this bright and sunny morning. All 7 of them bowed their heads in remembrance of their fallen friend, Icy the Ninjask. We have one final test before us. We must defeat the fiercest trainers in this region today. We have faced every challenge together from the beginning of this journey. I have seen how strong you all are. Together, we made it through 8 gyms, and together we will become the champions. I am proud of all of you, and I love you all. Now let us defeat this trial. Everyone let out battle cries confidently. Broomy nudged Mary's shoulder and she kissed his snout. She withdrew everyone into their Pokeballs and walked into the Pokemon League. Mary stepped into the first opponent's chamber and felt the freezing cold. Before her stood a tall woman with red hair and glasses. With a deep breath, Mary approached her. Welcome, challenger. I am Lorelei of the Elite Four. It takes skill to meet with me in battle, so let's forget the formalities and get straight to it. Let's go, Alakazam! The psychic Pokemon burst onto the field. We started this together. We'll start the league together. Go, Broomy! Rayquaza roared onto the battlefield. Crunch attack! Broomy was too fast for the Alakazam and chomped down on it with dark energy. The Alakazam fainted immediately. Lorelei sent in the mythical Jirachi next, which Mary had Broomy used Crunch on as well. The extra steel typing lessened his blow, allowing Jirachi to set up a cosmic power to boost its defensive stats. Broomy crunched it again, but Jirachi took even less damage and set up Doom Desire, which would hit in a few turns. Broomy and Jirachi exchanged blows and a few heal stalls on Lorelei's part, but eventually Broomy used Crunch at critical power and took it out. Magby came in next, and Broomy used Rock Slide at critical power again. Mary was trying so hard to remain calm when all she wanted to do was cheer for her best companion. Kingler was up next, but one Dragon Claw from her mighty Rayquaza ended its tenure on the field. Lorelei sent in her last Pokemon, a Tyrogue, and Broomy knocked it out in one hit. He had just defeated the first Elite Four member by himself. Mary ran up and wrapped her arms around his neck, hugging him tightly, Broomy grinning and licking her face. Lorelei clapped. "Who is it that tamed the mighty Lord of the Skies and defeated me in battle?" she asked, and Mary smiled. "Mary Sanderson of Salem," she replied. "Well, Mary, your mastery of a legend is proof you're ready for this tournament. Head to the next room," Lorelei congratulated her. Mary healed Broomy, then returned him to his ball. She walked confidently into the second chamber, where she met a large burly man doing push-ups. Suddenly, it got very hot in the room, but she shook herself out of it. He saw her and stood up. "I'm the second Elite Four trainer. My name is Bruno, and who do I have the honor of battling today?" he asked. "I am Mary Sanderson," she introduced herself. "All right, Mary, your challenge ends here. Go, Mischievous!" His ghost burst from her ball. "Cabby, it's your time to shine," Mary sent in her mighty Enna. Cabby went in for a crunch, and Mischievous barely survived. The ghost type used Perish Song, a move that instantly killed a foe and the user at the end of 3 turns. Mary and Cabby locked eyes. They were not scared. Bruno chose to heal Mischievous, opening the door for Cabby to crunch it and leave it low. Cabby was so fast she finished the Mischievous before it could move again. Mary withdrew Cabby to prevent Perish Song from working as Bruno sent in a Golem. Mary called on Bowser, who dug in his heels and fired a warning from the cannons on his back. Golem used Earthquake, which did more damage to Bowser than Mary thought, but her giant turtle was faster, and the surf attack took down the Golem before it could hit again. A Fortress was brought in next, and Mary returned Bowser to his ball. Mary kissed the next Pokeball before throwing in Brutus. Brutus took a Zap Cannon, which left him paralyzed and slower. Fortress tried to use Zap Cannon again, but Brutus dodged, fought through the paralysis, and unleashed a flamethrower that knocked out his foe. In came a Camerupt, which Mary opted to fight with Bowser. With a quadruple weakness to water, Camerupt didn't stand a chance against Surf. Bruno's last Pokemon was a Kabutops, which Mary fought with Nutcase. He took a couple of slashes, but Giga Drain won the battle. Mary cheered loudly for the 4 Pokemon who fought against her opponent. Bruno simply bowed to her in admiration before she moved to the next room. An old lady holding a cane stood there grimacing at her. "So, old Oak found a pupil to do his dirty work from now on, did he? Man used to be a legend of a trainer, and now all he wants to do is play with that Pokédex. I'll show him why it was a mistake to give up battles by defeating you," she cackled. "I, Agatha of the Elite Four, will trounce you." "Give it thy best." Mary stood her ground. "Go, Bennett." The ghost doll appeared in the battlefield. "Lamb Chop! Thunder Punch!" Mary's Ampharos attacked it the second it left the ball. Her punch struck, and in addition to dealing massive damage, it paralyzed the Bennett. The reduced speed opened the door for Lamb Chop to knock it out. A Walrein was up next, and it felt Lamb Chop's thundery wrath being taken out by 2 thunder punches. Azurill met with Lamb Chop's Brick Break attack and fell immediately. Amistar delayed its fate by using Protect, then on the next turn was defeated by Thunder Punch. Blissey was the final opponent, and it thought it was safe by eating a citrus berry to restore its health, but Brick Break took it out. This entire battle belonged to Lamb Chop. Mary hugged her tightly and Lamb Chop danced with her. Agatha walked over to the pair. "With one Pokemon, you defeated my entire team," she huffed. "Very impressive, young lady. Now go finish this tournament in style." "Yes, ma'am," Mary nodded. Lamb Chop was healed and they stepped into the final Elite Four's chamber. He was tall, with bright red hair, and wore a black cape. "A wizard? I am Lance, the Dragon Tamer, but my love for Pokemon encompasses all types. To make it this far is an accomplishment few have managed. I have heard your name echoing through the halls. Mary, show me your best." "I will show you the power of my team and my dragon," Mary said confidently. "Broomy, take flight!" Mary sent in her Rayquaza as Lance sent in his Pikachu. Broomy roared loudly, gearing up for this fight. Mary ordered Broomy to use Dragon Claw, and his powerful strike knocked out the Pikachu immediately. Next came a Teddiursa that Mary couldn't help laughing at. Broomy's Dragon Claw sent it back into its Pokeball. Next, Lance sent in a Butterfree. It was clear to Mary he thought he needed to take it easy on her. That was his mistake. The Butterfree met its end when Broomy used Rock Slide. Lance brought in a Quagsire, and Mary chose to swap out Broomy for Nutcase. She wanted to show off more of her team to the man who demanded her best. Quagsire used Rain Dance to boost its Water-type moves, but Nutcase used Giga Drain and knocked it out. Lance's last Pokemon was a Tentacool. Nutcase used Psychic and ended the final Elite Four battle. Mary screamed and cheered for her Palm Tree and her dragon. Lance exhaled and approached her. "My hubris was my downfall. I did not believe anyone could defeat me twice, but I have been bested by 2 trainers." He looked up at her Rayquaza. "You have the power to tame a legend such as the mighty Rayquaza. You have the power to defeat the current champion." "Wait, I thought you were the champion," Mary puzzled. "I was until yesterday when a boy named Jeffrey defeated me. He awaits your challenge ahead, and I know you will win," Lance said encouragingly. "Your Pokemon love you. That's very clear." "And I them." Mary looked at her boys, then returned them to their Pokeballs. She approached the doors to the champion arena. Mary took a deep breath and calmed her nerves. If she defeated Jeffrey, her longtime rival in this world, she would go home to her sisters. Not only that, she'd be taking all of the amazing Pokemon she caught with her. The doors opened, and Mary walked in to find Jeffrey in the center of the room. He turned to her and smirked. "Look at you," he said smugly. "You made it to the Elite Four the day after me. But now you have to battle me to take the title of champion, and I won't let that happen." "I have more at stake than thee. I will not lose to you," Mary shouted. "I'll make sure you do," he said. "I've worked too hard to make a name for myself when you've been parading around the region with Rayquaza for a partner." "You could have chosen him, but you were too scared of a challenge," Mary scolded him, and Jeffrey sneered. "I chose him because he needed a friend, and so did I. Now you'll see what I have learned on this journey with Broomy and my other partners." "Do your worst. Your challenge ends here," he declared. Mary sent in Brutus, but Jeffrey brought in a Crawdaunt. Mary quickly switched out her Charizard for her Ampharos. Crawdaunt used Swords Dance to boost its attack by 2 steps. "Lamb Chop, Thunder Punch as hard as you can!" Lamb Chop uppercut the Crawdaunt with her shocking fist and sent it flying into the air. When it hit the ground, it was knocked out. 5 more to go. Lamb Chop flexed her muscles, and Mary cheered loudly for her. Jeffrey sent out Graveler, which was dangerous for Lamb Chop. Mary called her back and threw Bowser's Ball. Her Blastoise shot his water cannons into the sky. Graveler used Earthquake, which again did more damage to Bowser than Mary would have thought. "Bowser, drown it with surf!" Bowser blasted water from his cannons that swelled up into a huge wave. He rode on top of it as Graveler started running, but the tsunami swallowed it up. The water washed away, and Graveler was done. 4 more to go. Bowser shot his cannons again, and Mary screamed excitedly. Jeffrey brought in his partner Marowak to fight. Bowser's health had taken some damage, so to keep him safe, Mary called him back and sent in Nutcase. Nutcase stomped his feet aggressively. Marowak used a powerful double-edge attack, but Nutcase threw him off. "Drain its life force with Giga Drain!" Nutcase used his move and restored all of his health as Marowak fell at his feet. Mary cheered as half of Jeffrey's team had been defeated. Jeffrey was getting angrier by the second as he sent in Vaporeon. Mary had Nutcase stay in against the water type. She ordered him to hit it with Giga Drain again, so he did, but this thing was far bulkier. Vaporeon retaliated with an ice-type move called Aurora Beam that really hurt Nutcase. He used Giga Drain again and restored his health. Jeffrey decided to heal Vaporeon, which allowed Mary to swap her Exeggutor out for Lambchop. She was not risking his life against that ice-type move. Lambchop used Thunder Punch, which knocked it down to half health. Vaporeon used Acid Armor to boost its defenses, but Lambchop came in for another punch. She took it down and Kingdra was sent in. Mary looked at Lambchop, who nodded confidently, so she stayed in battle. Thunder Punch did not hit as hard as Mary wanted because of the dragon typing. Lambchop, however, stayed strong. Kingdra tried to use Hydro Pump, but Lambchop dodged. She came in for another punch, knocking it down into the red. Jeffrey healed his Kingdra, so Lambchop got in a free punch, but it just wasn't doing enough. Mary made the decision to withdraw Lambchop. All right. The only way to fight a dragon is with another dragon. She threw the first Pokeball she'd ever received. Broomy! Broomy roared loudly and got ready to fight. Kingdra used Hydro Pump, followed by Twister, causing Broomy to flinch and miss his attack. It's okay, Broomy, you can do it. Everything we've been through, built to this moment for you. She healed him and Broomy took another Twister. His confidence looked a bit frayed as the Kingdra was so fast. I believe in you, Rayquaza. Broomy looked at Mary and she nodded to him. Now use Dragon Claw. Broomy fought through the Twister attack, roared, and struck the Kingdra with Dragon Claw. Kingdra fell and Broomy roared again. Mary cheered loudly for him. There was only one Pokemon left now. Jeffrey sent in a Mightyena, and Mary withdrew Broomy. She sent in Cabby, who growled at her foe. Mary knew her Mightyena was far superior, as Jeffrey's used Taunt to prevent her from using stat-boosting moves. Cabby used Strength and slammed into the opponent at critical power. Mary's heart raced as Cabby was so fast she managed to do it again, but less powerfully. Mightyena used Taunt again, then Jeffrey healed it up. Mary didn't back down, and neither did Cabby. She used Strength, but the foe had boosted its defense. The taunt wore off, so Mary had Cabby use Howl to boost her attack stat. Mightyena used Takedown and critical hit Cabby. Mary chose to heal her Pokemon, but Cabby took another takedown. The recoil damage was weakening the Mightyena, so Cabby used Strength again, knocking it into the red health range. Both Mightyenas stared each other down, but Jeffries moved first and used Taunt. Mary saw the opening. Cabby, use Strength with every last ounce of power in thy body. Cabby ran and leaped into the air, charged her attack, and dove right at her foe. She slammed into the Mightyena's back, and when Mary looked again, Cabby's paw was over the foe's throat. It had fainted. Mary fell to her knees in shock. It was over. She won! Cabby ran over to her, tackled her, and licked her face over and over as all of her Pokemon burst from their balls and surrounded her. Mary was laughing and crying at the same time. She was done. She was going home. Jeffrey went to his knees and slammed his fists into the ground. Mary got back up to her knees, arm around Cabby. How did I lose? My team was strong, he growled. Because we love each other. Mary stroked her Mightyena. We have a bond that goes beyond power. I knew from the start what I was here fighting for. What sort of purpose did you give yourself? Jeffrey thought and snickered at himself. Just to be powerful, he said. You always talked about trying to find your sisters. I guess your purpose was greater than mine. Good job. Mary got up, walked over to Jeffrey, and offered her hand. He took it, got up, and they shook on it. Professor Oak came walking in a moment later, clapping. Well, I must say, that was a fantastic battle, you two, he congratulated them. Jeffrey, I'm proud you made it so far, but you never learned the lesson that Mary did. She built confidence in herself and in each of her Pokemon by loving them. She had to do things all on her own that she had never done before. That's why she defeated you, her heart. Oak turned to Mary. You have passed your trial. May I have your Pokédex, please? Mary handed over her Pokédex, and Oak pressed a few buttons. Every Pokemon she had caught on her journey was transported to the arena, even the fallen 3. Icy buzzed up to her, and Mary gave her Ninjask a hug. Oak examined the dex a bit longer before nodding and putting it in his pocket. Your team will be recognized in our Hall of Fame here. Your team will join your sisters. He gestured to the wall, and Mary saw a photo of Sarah with her final team. A Glaceon, a Shiny Jumpluff, Arcanine, Hypno, Dodrio, and Poliwrath. Mary and her team took their photo, and she turned to him. Time for you to go. Mary looked at her Pokemon and swallowed. They come too, right? She asked, and Oak sighed. No, they must remain here. Mary felt her heart sink. But I did make an exception for Sarah, and I'll do the same for you. Since you did have such a successful test, you may take 2 Pokemon home instead of 1. But only 2. Mary looked at everyone, her stomach tying into a knot. How could she choose? She looked at Brutus and called to him. She'd made him a promise, and she was going to keep it. Mary hugged all of her Pokemon, then stood in front of Broomy and held out his ball. Come home with me. Broomy leaned down to her, then nuzzled her cheek. Broomy? He looked at the sky above the open arena, and Mary heard her Pokédex beep one last time. Rayquaza, a legendary Pokemon. It is known as the Lord of the Skies and protects the ozone layer from pollution and intruders. Mary bit her lip and felt tears burn in her eyes. I understand now. This is what you were thinking about last night, she realized. You couldn't decide whether to stay with me or not. She dropped his Pokeball on the ground. When we met, you were injured, and I was to take care of thee. I helped thee to grow strong again, and thou hast put that strength in me. All I want is for you to be happy, and if thou art so conflicted, she lifted her boot, slammed it down, and crushed his Pokeball. Broomy reeled back as she started crying. Then I'm not giving you a choice. You have to go. You have to be the guardian of the skies again. Go, Rayquaza, get out of here. Broomy curled around her until their eyes met. Mary laid her head on his face, and he hugged her with his small arms. She hugged him too, her heart breaking. She could hear all the other Pokemon sniffling and crying too. They didn't want to say goodbye to their friend either. I love you too, Broomy. Now go be the Pokemon I know you can be, she whispered. Broomy released her from his coils, said goodbye to the other Pokemon, and started to fly into the sky above the arena. Mary watched until he was out of sight, one last roar echoing in her ears. Brutus put one hand on her shoulder, then she felt fur under her left hand. She looked down and saw Cabby trying to comfort her. How can I choose just one more of you to go? She sniffed. Lambchop, Nutcase, and Bowser all walked up and hugged her one by one. Lambchop, the first Pokemon Mary caught, scooted Cabby forward more and nodded. Are you sure? They nodded. Okay. Cabby, come home with me. Cabby yipped and ran to her side. Mary felt herself lift from the ground and her body started turning to dust. Brutus and Cabby were lifted up next to her and they also started to vanish. Mary looked at her Pokemon one last time. I will treasure you all forever. Goodbye, my friends. Bye-bye. Everything went dark. Mary woke up and looked at the ceiling in her room. She was in her room! Mary sat bolt upright and saw Cabby sleeping at the foot of her bed. Brutus was curled up on the floor, snoring. Mary pet both of them, and they stirred. Cabby licked her face a few times, and Mary giggled. Brutus rubbed his snout against her hand. We're home, you two, she said, then her eyes widened. Oh, we're home! Come on, we have to find Sarah and Winnie. Mary, Cabby, and Brutus were up and running out of the bedroom. They scrambled down the stairs, Brutus getting stuck at the top due to his wings. Cabby gestured for Mary to keep going, and she'd get their pal unstuck. Mary ran into the main area of the house and looked around. No one was here. Where were her sisters? The door opened and Mary's heart jumped as a blue feline with long ears walked inside, followed by Sarah! Mary gasped and ran to her sister. Mary! Sarah exclaimed. They slammed into each other, hugging tightly. They didn't stop hugging for several minutes. I went out for a moment and then I saw your results. You passed on your first try. Thou hast done better than I. You faced tougher challenges, sister. I had less of one. Mary looked her over, up and down. It had been far too long. She felt something brush her leg and saw the feline. Oh, is this your Pokemon? Yes, this is my Glaceon. His name is Carlos. Sarah knelt down beside her partner, and Mary bent down too. She extended her hand, and Carlos gave her a sniff. He immediately rubbed his face on her hand. He likes thee. He is very handsome, Mary said. Didst thou bring home a Pokemon? Sarah asked her. Oh, yes, 2 of them. Mary turned to the stairs. Come here, friends. Cabby's nails clicked on the wood floor and ran over to her master. This is my mighty Enna, Shishka baby, but we call her Cabby for short. Oh, hello, Cabby. Thou art so beautiful. Sarah extended her hand for Cabby to sniff. Cabby ran up to her face and started licking her over and over. Oh, and very affectionate. Cabby, let her breathe. Mary laughed, and Cabby backed off. Where is thy other? Sarah asked, and about that moment, Brutus made it down the stairs. Sarah shrieked almost out of fear. A Charizard! Brutus saw her, let out a happy growl, and charged. He grabbed Sarah up in his arms and lifted her from the ground. Whoa! Mary, is this yours? Actually, sister, he's yours, Mary smiled. Sarah looked at the Charizard, then at Mary. I did not have a Charizard. She shook her head. No, but thou had a Charmander called Brutus. 'Tis he, all grown up, Mary said, and Sarah looked at him again. Brutus grinned from ear to ear. Brutus? She muttered, and he licked her face, rubbing his cheek against hers. Brutus! Oh my, it is thee! Sarah hugged him around the neck. Didst thou help Mary? He nodded. Where he died with you, I found him as a Charizard, and he was on my team from the second gym forward, Mary told her. Sarah could not stop hugging the Charizard she believed to be dead. How did you know I passed my test? Oh, I saw the status on thy test change on the paper outside, Sarah said. That is how. And where is Winnie? Mary looked around for their eldest sister. Oh, I bet she's beginning. Sarah got down from Brutus's grip and ran outside, Mary on her heels. There was a paper on the door that read, Redemption Testing. Sarah Sanderson passed on second attempt. Mary Sanderson passed on first attempt. Winifred Sanderson, in progress. 'Tis Winnie's turn. Mary saw it change. First attempt failed, second attempt in progress. Sarah and Mary looked at each other, knowing Winifred had barely started before she failed. Winnie will need spells of luck. And we shall cheer her on together. Sarah agreed with her, and their Pokemon cheered. The end.